Hi guys, how are you? Good afternoon. I'm sorry I'm late. Let me say hi to you guys. Hey Wayne. Hey Music City Mom. Hey Michelle. Hey the boss lady. Sunday Doodles. Lisa. Crime Crochet and Coiffe. Melissa Alex. Neat Noodle. Hello, hello, hello. Hi Destination. The day is here. Hey Chesil. Good to see you guys. Hey, Sophie. Let me see here. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Hey, poor Linda. Jennifer. Nadine, my boo. Let me see. RJ. Bonnie. Alexander. Sarah Bellum. Sorry. Give me a snack. Or get me a snack. Hello. I'm always down for a snack. Hey, Sharon. Good to see you guys. Let's see. I think I got all of you. Grandma Sherry, hey. Good to see everybody. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Nicole B. I think Rhonda. Let's see. I think I got everybody. Hey, Carousel. I think that's how you say your name. I hope it's how you say your name. Good to see everybody. How are you guys? I hope everybody, hey, Christina, I hope everybody is doing well. Today is the day. We finna see justice. Let me switch out of this really quick. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. If I didn't see you over the Thanksgiving holiday, let's see. Let me get over here. Let me just focus on one thing. Clearly, talking and doing something at the same time is not going to get it for me. Clearly, I need to just straight focus because, wow. Let's see. Hold on. I can't find this stream. Let's see. I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, why can I not find this stream? What is happening here? Hold on a minute. I think it's on Crime Trials. Let's see. I know that I saw it scheduled. So what is the deal? Y'all hear my tummy grumbling? My tummy is hungry. Why can't I find this? What is the problem today? Hold on. All right. So I did see in the chat, there was a question earlier about would Sarah speak? Which when somebody speaks at their sentencing, it's called allocution. So I found it. All right. Almost closed the wrong. Okay. Anyway, all right. So do I think that Sarah will speak? Actually, yeah, I do. And the reason I think that is because it's very Sarah-esque to speak. She is not happy about the fact that she was found guilty in the first place. Obviously, Sarah knew that she was never going to be found. This was not like a guilty versus not guilty scenario for her. The battered spouse defense is an affirmative defense. Okay. What it was really about is what they could find her guilty of. So if they found that she was in fear of her life, and it's not just that she was in fear of her life, because it's a little deeper than that. It's more that would a another reasonable person under those circumstances, use deadly force. That's essentially what it boiled down to. So it was never really about guilt or innocence, obviously, because it's an affirmative defense. So she knows she did it. So she was never going to get like no time, I mean, it's okay. If they would have found her guilty of negligent homicide, she conceivably might have had to do a few more years and then would be out, right? She should have, frankly, her best option in this scenario really would have been to just take the plea deal, honestly, because you do 85% of your time. She would have gotten credit for time served. She would have had roughly about 7 more years to do, and then she would have been out. If she would have, provided that, she didn't catch any new charges in the interim, provided that she didn't, because there's no, for murder in Florida, we don't have a parole system like for those crimes. There are certain offenses, murder being one of them, that we don't have parole for. You do your time, that's it, the end, goodbye. And I think that I know that because I was reading up about this today. Why is that how they do things in Florida? And the thought is it is intended to be a deterrent. Well, happy birthday, Mrs. Grusing. Whose birthday is it for real? Because I don't feel like I clicked on a Mrs. Grusing. Whose birthday is it for real, for real? Hey, Rachel Lee, somebody tell me in the chat so I don't have to scroll all the way up. 1:30, Wayne, is the time that sentencing is scheduled. And I will say this with respect to Judge Cranick. He is nothing if not punctual. He is fantastic in that way. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Judge Cranick is fantastic. Crime Crochet and Coiffe's birthday is today. Happy birthday, Crime Crochet and Coiffe. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Crime Crochet and Coiffe. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, babe. Happy birthday. We've all been waiting for this moment. Y'all realize how long we've been waiting for this moment for real? Okay, if you just take it, which is the least dramatic way to take it, from the date of her conviction.
Excellent.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. Hey, Jen, I was wondering if you would like to have a long and deep conversation anytime. Thank you, babe. I appreciate that very much. That was very generous. Thank you very much. Yes, the answer is yes. I'm glad you thought it was beautiful, Crime Crochet and Coiffe. I feel like maybe you're being extra generous by saying it was beautiful. I can't sing faux nothing. So, okay, if we just take it, which is like the most boring way to do it, but okay, from October 25th, that's the day that they found her guilty, okay? From October 25th to November 25th is a month, and we're on the 2nd. So there's a month and a week. 1 month, 7 days, 37 days, okay? Or you could do it how I like to do it. Let's be all the dramatic and all the extra and take it from February 25th, 2020. That's how long we've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for this through 11 billion letters, happen. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much for gifting a membership. If you are the person that got that membership from Jennifer, please thank her. Let's see who got it. Carol got it. Congratulations, Carol. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate that. That was very generous. Thank you. I prefer to think of it in those terms, which is really tantamount to 7 years in Gen Lu time. Anything more than a couple of days for me is equivalent to 7 years to me. So there's that. Now, what's she looking at? All right. So on the low end, right, the least amount of time she's going to get is 22 and a half years. That is the minimum mandatory for second degree murder. High end is going to be life. And in Florida, like I just explained, because there's no parole for violent crimes, murder being one of them, obviously. She would do, if she were to be sentenced to life, it would be her natural life. Like, she would not be eligible to leave the prison until she was no longer living. So, Crime Crochet and Coiffee, thank you for becoming a member. Welcome to the ward. Thank you for supporting me in the channel. I appreciate it very, very much. So she would get, oh no, Jenna, I'm so sorry. It scares the crap out of everybody. Maybe I should change it. I just like that I can have the option for a sound. It makes me feel special. It makes me feel a little bougie. And I don't have very many opportunities to feel bougie. Okay. It makes me fancy. Maybe I'll fix the noise though. Okay. So it's not so, it's not so startling, so jarring, especially for those of us that are applying makeup, especially eye makeup, i.e. mascara, eyeliner. You might be okay if you're doing eyeshadow, but definitely nothing near the eye like that. Hey, Megan, good to see you. So how this will play out, which, I mean, you guys are like the OGs of watching trials. You guys have, been watching trials, especially with me, for a long time. So how this is going to play out is this way. The state is going to present aggravating factors. I'm real curious. They may not stand up and say, we think the state thinks that she should get life and then whatever, like, fines. Okay. They might just leave it up to the judge. Okay. So then on the other side of that is going to be everybody's favorite, Mr. Owens. And like, lower how loud the volume of the sound that, yeah, I can try. Give me just a second. I'll do that. Yeah, let me do that. Hold on. Let me see. Why did it do that? Hold on. All right, here we go. Let me look. Let's see. Yeah, I can turn it down. It was at 50. I'm going to turn it down to 35. I have to do it to each one though. So give me just a second. Let me turn them all down. All right. There's that. And there's that. All right. I turned it down. So I'm going to leave this window open just so that we can, if it's not good, we'll know. Okay. So then on the other side of let's hope while we're talking about the other side of the table, the other table, the defense table, let's hope that they've all, between October 25th and today, which is December 2nd, understood and appreciate the use and the function of a microphone and use it correctly. Because I can't deal with another situation where we don't know how to work the microphone. So Angela asks, Angela, this is not a stupid question, so I'm not even going to read that part. Will we hear victim impact statements today? Yes. If there are victim impact statements that were, well, hold on. I don't know how Judge Cranick does it, okay? But usually the victims are given a couple of different options. One, they can make a victim impact statement in writing and give it to the judge, okay? Or they can get up in front of the judge in open court and give their impact statements. So or there's a third option. They can have the victim's rights advocate read their impact statement for them. I don't know how Judge Cranick does it. This is my first time watching a trial with Judge Cranick, so I'm not 100% sure how he runs things in his courtroom. But if he allows, some judges, some judges don't allow it because it's hard on victims, and so they allow it. They want it can be a more private thing between the judge and the victims themselves. Like he or she would get the victim impact statements ahead of time, read those, and take them into consideration prior to. So Charlie asks, Jen, could the judge give her less than 22 years, or does he have to give her at least 22? It is my understanding that the minimum he can give, the mandatory minimum, which means there's no flexibility in sentencing. The least she would walk away with today is 22 and a half years. There's no flexibility in that. Where the flexibility lies is in between 22 and a half and life, natural life. I don't want to say like, yes. Okay. So Angie asks, what about time served? Yes. If she were to get a sentence in which there is eligibility for release, she would get credit for time served. Even if she were to get natural life, okay? 'Cause I don't like saying life without the possibility of parole because there's no possibility of parole for a crime like this in, uh, Florida. So they don't have a parole system. We have a parole system in Florida, just not for violent crimes. So she can get credit for time served. But when you're talking about, "Hey, Titanium Bill, good to see you." When you're talking about, life, natural life, right? Does it really matter if you get credit for, the to use Sarah's phrase, ongoing 5 years? I mean, does it really matter? MK Leon, what up? So there's that. I'm not sure, Jenna. I'll have to look into that and find out. What I know, that Wisconsin, they have something similar, but they call it something different. It's called truth in sentencing. And so where people have the opportunity for release, there's if you are sentenced to, say, 40 years, okay, I think the truth in sentencing, you do the 40 years, less any credit for time served. Wisconsin has something kind of something kind of similar. But bottom line, okay, so then we move into, um, yes, Psych General says, okay, so Sarah has to serve 85% of her sentencing. So let's say that Judge Kranick sentences Sarah to the minimum mandatory, which is 22 and a half years. Let me bust out the calculator right quick. Okay. So 22 and a half years, she gets credit for, let's just round it up to 5, so just to make it easy. So 22.5 minus 5 is 17 and a half years. So she's got to do 85% of 17 and a half years. So that takes away 4 years. So 13 years out of 17. Was that right? So yeah. It's at 1:30, Low Red. You haven't missed anything. We still got 3 minutes. Heck, Law and Crime isn't even live yet with it. So that's okay. Charlie asks, Jen, has it been decided if Brian has to pay her alimony since she's in prison? They are still, to my understanding, they're still going through that process. It's okay. I'm a Florida resident. Could I request those records? Yeah, I could. Would I get them? Probably not all of them, because I'm sure there are some things, particularly um, things having to do with their child, and I wouldn't be able to get, but I'm a Florida resident, so I could get them. It's my understanding that she and Brian are still working that out, and that in the interim of that, Brian is putting that money in, essentially. It's not escrow. It's what's the word I'm thinking of? Don't nobody try to get in my brain. It's real messy up there. I got a lot of things going on. Um, it's being held in an account um, for if for the decision. So, and I feel like this. I think it's messed up in the first place. Yes, trust. Thank you, Nicole B. Trust is the word. I think it's messed up that he would even have to pay her alimony. And here's why. Okay. Um, Currently, she is being housed in the Orange County Correctional Facility, the jail, awaiting trial, right? Where she has been since February 25th of 2020. So she's got a roof over her head and she's got 3 hots and a cot. What does she need? It's also my understanding that in the early phases or the early time that she had Mr. Padilla as her attorney, that Brian was paying for that. So, I mean, I feel like it's I think it adds insult to injury in a way because, she drug him into this. Okay. She when she found George in the suitcase, the only reason that she called Brian back after he'd been calling her is because she needed help. Okay. Rest assured, if there was nothing going on that day, none of this had ever happened, okay, Sarah would have returned his phone call when she got good and ready, whenever that was. And also what Rachel Lee says, the fact that Brian was already in discussion with the lawyer to rework the custody because she just, frankly, is not reliable. I mean, I don't think that, I don't think that's in dispute. Okay. So she calls him to get over there. He comes, and what ends up happening? George is deceased, and boom, he's now a witness in a murder trial. And to further add insult to injury, okay, she wants money out of him because she's entitled. I think it's ridiculous. I can't get my brain around that at all. At all. But this is Sarah we're talking about, like Sarah does whatever Sarah wants to do whenever Sarah wants to do it. And, can't like it. She just is who she is. And I don't know, Wayne, what the holdup is, but I'm watching it. Let me I'll tell you what. We're going to do this the fair way. Whoever's live first, that's what we're going to watch. So let's switch it up. And even Court TV isn't live yet either. So we'll just keep refreshing. All right. Anywho, I mean, I don't know. She's flying in. Listen, Sarah, you don't need fancy schmancy hair and makeup. What you need is to remember that you have a front of your hair, a sides of your hair, and a back of your hair. Okay. I want you to focus on the back of your hair. I totally was, and I'm still doing it. I'm just not sure how I don't know. Anyways, I was waiting for the sentencing because I have a video that I want to put out, but I want to know how it ends. I feel like that would be, I don't want to make a second video. You know what I mean? Just about the ending. I want to put it all together in one and then be done. So at the end of the day, Sarah, like I was putting together this video and it's the day of her testimony. There were other days too, but this was specifically the day that I was focusing on. And Sarah Boone was on the stand for quite a while. I mean, it was the majority of the day, like about 5 hours. Okay. And I noticed, and I'm not sure how this phenomenon occurs, but She started the day out with a a bit of bedhead, okay? Now, she's sitting in a courtroom in a chair, not even like a gaming chair with a high back, okay? That's all right. She's sitting in a courtroom all day long, then all morning, then mid-morning, she gets up there to testify. There's a whole lot of after she, testifies to this overt act, right? Then there's another sort of hearing, and the judge says, "All right, it's been a scintilla of evidence. I'm going to let the battered spouse defense in, blah blah blah." We were all there, right? So she's back up on the stand. The jury gets brought in, and somehow or another, her bedhead is worse. And not only is it worse, it gets worse as the testimony goes on. Okay. Like, I don't understand what's happening with hair just in general. Like, we have Melanie G, okay, who had, now I understand what happens sort of with Mel G because, yeah, Lori, now you did that lady wrong when you cut her hairs. That was not a good haircut. Okay. And then it's more of a maintenance than I think Mel was prepared for. And as the result, Melanie has tuning fork bangs. So when she straightened those bangs, and she most definitely straightened them, and I would guess that Melanie used something from way back in the day, back in the early 2000s, which would allow you to both straighten and dry your hair at the same time. I cannot remember what it's called, but ladies, you remember this, okay? Which essentially just fried the crap out of your hair. It was not good for you at all. But I think that's what she did. But then as you see, it's not all people, it's the liars, right? Melanie G lied her whole face off during that entire interrogation. And what happened with those bangs? The more she lied, the more they stuck out like divining rods. Okay. Then we can move to Jason P for everyone Spillers. Okay. Who has, God forgive me, not the hair color, just the way that the haircut is. Remember Bozo, the show? Okay. How Bozo the clown had like that little tuft of hair on the top, and then it was just mainly on the sides and in the back. Okay. So he had that hairdo going on, except for two like chunks of hair that were like, we're not going to curl. And they were like super straight. And the more he testified, the longer he was on the stand, the straighter they got, and the more they started to like stick out. So YouTube is deleting your comments, Nay? Who do I see about that? Your comments should never be deleted. Unacceptable at all. All right, let me refresh. They're still not live. What's the holdup? Let me see. No me gusta. What is happening? I knew I shouldn't have said anything about prompt, because usually Judge Kranick is pretty. It's probably Owens. Okay. So yeah, that's, you can tell who the liars are by the hair. Okay. There it is. We got it. All right. Oh no, that beat me. No, I didn't like the beat. I don't need to have two of these up. There we go. There we go. Remove. Oh, what? Can I not? Oh, here we go. Remove this over here. We want to see all the things, and Jen Lou's forehead ain't it. So it could never be, listen here, it can never be Judge Cranick's fault. Ever, ever, ever in the history of evers. Hey, Mrs. O, good to see you. So yeah, I cannot imagine that Sarah won't take an opportunity to speak. No matter how. Okay, what got deleted? Nay, because I don't have it set to where there needs to be approved comments or anything like that. And if it let you keep, damn it. And yes, Titanium, this is why we're all here, because this is what's important. Okay. Sarah's ridiculousness, Sarah's shenanigans, Sarah herself really should be the second thought. Titanium is correct. George's family is finally going to get justice after 5 long years. Not just after 5 long years, okay, but after hold on a minute. Well, thanks, Nay. Weird. Okay, so not only after it's been a long time, number one, but number two, there's the letters, right? And they, to be a family member of a victim, there is a level of mental preparedness that you have to do in order to be ready for the trial. And that is a few things. One, obviously, would be the testimony. It's hard, it is what, it's hard testimony. They're talking about, your loved one. And these are people from the state and from the defense who don't know George like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the state is there for the victim, obviously, and they care. It's not like that. It's just, they don't know their loved one that way. Okay. And then you have that. And then you have the fact that it's a jury trial. Okay. Which means, in this, like this scenario, I believe there were 12 altogether. And then they picked 6 to ultimately deliberate. But that part of it, whether the perpetrator, the accused, is going to be found guilty or not guilty, is completely out of your control. And you have to be prepared for whatever it is that the jury decides. So that takes some mental preparedness too. Okay. But also in this case, so they would get all prepared, right, to go to trial, and then boom, another attorney would withdraw, which isn't the attorney's fault. We all know who's to blame. Sarah, we're looking at you. Okay. So there's that. Then we have, let me see, what does this do? Then we have the whole, so that element. So then that puts the trial off even longer. Okay. Then when she gets this newest attorney, what is the first thing he did when he spoke to media? He took a swipe at George, as if George asked for this. Okay. And which is victim blaming, which is absolute ridiculousness. Okay. Then not only did Owens do that, okay, but then Owens put on his case where we were there. He said the things that he said, and he displayed a picture from a video with zero context. The only context was Sarah's testimony about what was going on in that picture. Okay. Then all the other videos come out, videos that Sarah herself recorded. These videos are what I would imagine. I think these videos are the videos that Sarah herself is referring to in the interrogation video, because she does say something to the effect of, oh, well, there's, videos on my phone. I mean, at one point I started documenting. So this is an insight into Sarah's mind. Okay. Sarah believes that those videos that she recorded of her berating George actually show George as the bad guy and actually show her as the victim. Especially, this is what's so satisfying, that the truth is now out, because her whole testimony was the reason that she zipped him in the zipper, or zipped him up in the suitcase and kept him in the suitcase, is because these are her words. Now George would be forced to listen to her. And then we see all of those videos. Hey, everybody just coming in. I see you guys. Thank you so much. If you guys wouldn't mind, could you do me a favor? Could you give me a thumbs up on the stream? I really appreciate it. So then we see the videos, and the truth of the matter all comes out. And we see that that's all George ever did, is listen to Sarah. On top of which, there's the video of Sarah telling George how he needs to get a hold of the DA and what to say, because the charges against her should be dropped. Coaching, as it were. Okay? Yeah, that big old smirk, she finna test. She gonna speak, y'all. I'm gonna call it right now. And she still sees them exactly, Rachel. She still sees them that way. She still sees herself. And there is there's a kernel of truth to that. Okay. In some way, she is a victim, because I understand how awful those tapes were, or those videos were. Okay. And I would imagine there's things on there there's things that occurred in that home between Sarah and George that are far worse than those situations, the berating, I mean. But at the end of the day, you cannot put your hands on another person. And when you do that, the other person then becomes a victim. And I also think that Sarah views herself as the victim, because so many times when law enforcement was called, and they were called by her, they believed Sarah and they took George. Even when the one officer could tell that something wasn't quite right. And offered George an opportunity to speak and to tell what was going on, right? For you know, t- tell the truth. And I say tell the truth is not tell the truth of the matter for real. It's not that George was ever lying. What I'm saying is what that officer wanted was for George to say, she hit me. I am the victim here. And I think there's a lot of evidence that suggests, oh, Titanium, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I got it, Wayne. It's up. I think that, oh, what are they looking at? Huh. And then the other thing okay, I know what I was going to say. I think there's evidence that strongly supports the potential of George maybe threatening to leave, maybe grabbing the suitcase, something. We have not heard the truth of that day into that evening yet from Sarah. All we know is the truth is for a fact is things that are not in dispute. Okay, things that are not in dispute are the two Publix videos. We know that at around noon ish, they went to Publix together to purchase a bottle of wine. We know after that George returned alone and bought another bottle of wine. Now, Mr. Owens asked Sarah about who paid for the bottle, or who paid for the wine, or how did you pay for the wine? And Sarah says, my debit card. But the truth is, and I mean, that's not a lie. They did, in fact, use her debit card to purchase the wine. But there's a little more to that story, because Sarah had texted Brian earlier to tell him that she was negative in her account, and he sent her money. And so, more than likely, I highly doubt that he sent her just enough money to cover the overdraft. I'm sure he sent her enough money to cover whatever it was that she was negative in her account, and then a little sum. Okay. And that's what she that's what she used to purchase the alcohol or the wine. Okay. And her whole story of they need to be watching Jen Liu, Sarah. Fix show again. Y'all, look what I said. She does not focus on this general vicinity here. Okay. Why? I do not know. It's like, whatever. You need to be watching me. Sarah, fix your hairs in the back, lady. Okay. So, and that's another thing. Like when it comes down to the sentencing, I don't think that Sarah's going to get the minimum mandatory. I think she's in for far more time than that. And the reason I think that is because at no time during any of her testimony at all did she ever say, I regret what I did. I'm sorry I'm sorry that George's life was lost. I miss him every day. I wish I could go back. I would have done things differently, even though it's and this is Sarah talking, even though it's, she's saying, let me just put it a different way. Even though Sarah's defense was that she had battered spouse syndrome, right? Um, she showed no remorse ever. Yes. Okay. So just Irish. Here's where she could go. All right. The minimum mandatory sentence for second degree murder is 22 and a half years. In Florida, for violent crimes, there is no parole. Okay. And whatever the sentence is, anywhere from 22 and a half years to natural life. So anything less than natural life, what will happen is she will be required to do 85% of her time. That's what will happen. And she's never showed an ounce of empathy, sympathy, or compassion for George. She has blamed that man every step of the way. And that's going to be a problem. And that is why people who cannot take accountability get harsher sentences. And this also, yes, Angela says she called 911 for a body removal instead of help. Absolutely. And that's another issue. Hey, Delaney, that's another issue, is the 911 call situation. First of all, Sarah had to be told multiple times by Brian to call 911. And even when he got there, he testified, and he also said in his recorded interview, it's just audio in the car, he said that he thinks that he walked into the house, stayed right there in the foyer entryway, right? Didn't cross from the tile to the carpeting. And he said that she went to smoke a cigarette and I guess call 911. Now we know that Brian, it is referenced on that 911 call. When she hollers out, "No, don't leave," she's hollering to Brian. And when the cops get there, she mentions that she has a Dr. Pepper and a cigarette on the porch. So it's my opinion, and I think that while this wasn't specifically asked of the medical examiner, and I wish it had been, if she could have told, if she was able to tell whether or not Sarah had performed CPR, I don't think that she did. The fact that the level of her voice during that entire 911 call never changed at all. Never changed. She had the same amount of volume in her voice. She and she never sounded out of breath. So to me, I think it's quite clear that she never performed CPR. And I don't know what the defense table is cooking up over there, because Sarah's over here shuffling papers like she's, co-counsel. I hope that's not her speech either. Gosh, I hope that's not her speech. Can you imagine, y'all, if that's her speech? We'll be here until New Year's. I do think that this is my theory of the crime, okay? I don't think that suitcase was ever downstairs to begin with. It just doesn't make sense. If you're going through items of clothing and all of the clothing is upstairs in the drawers in the bedrooms, why would you make it a point to go up and down the stairs 11 billion times if you don't have to? That's ridiculous. Okay, so there's that. I think that Sarah got to that point that she's no longer enjoyable. And listen, I'm using the term enjoyable very loosely because I don't think on any level Sarah would be enjoyable. But we all know a person who they're fine when they've been drinking until they aren't. And that switch just gets flipped. And I think that that is what happened. There's probably accusations, whatnot. But at the end of the day, that suitcase started upstairs. And I think that it was upstairs when George got in it. I think that what she did was she pushed it or pulled it to the edge of the stairs. And I think that she was trying to scare him, making him think that she was going to let go of it and let it go down the stairs, and what happened is she did, because she says in her deposition, I lost control. There's no reason for you to lose control. How do you lose control of a suitcase that's on the floor? I mean, that just doesn't make any kind of sense. I think the neighbors heard exactly what they testified to hearing on the exact day they testified that it occurred, which is Saturday. I think they heard George going down those stairs. And I think that I think that this is a leak. So when Sarah is talking about being scared for George to get out of the suitcase, I think that she's telling the truth, but not the truth about what she's scared of. I think that she was scared of George getting out of that suitcase, not because he would retaliate and she would be hurt, but because he might just this time might be the straw that broke the camel's back. And if he got out, he was going to call 911 and she was going to be arrested. That's what I think her fear was. And I think that she thought that she was going to record the videos that she recorded and that it was going to go the way that that previous interactions between Sarah and law enforcement, with the exception of one time, went, and they were just going to believe her. They were going to believe that she's not the violent one. I mean, look who has the history of it. George has a history of being violent towards Sarah. So, of course, they're going to believe that we were playing around. Of course, and hide and seek. Why'd she choose, of all the games that could have been played that day, why choose the most wrong game of hide and seek ever to say, well, because there was a prior incident where Sarah has a cut to her leg that ends up needing stitches. And what is the story that she gave the emergency room? They were playing a game. They were playing swords. Now, I think that there's a lot more to that story as well. And I don't think that we've heard the truth of it. OMG. It's almost like has been wearing a hat. There's a dent right here. You see this? And then it sticks out down here. What are you doing, Sarah? Come on, Judge. Let's get this show on the road. She is very fractious. Yes, she is. She is. Again, Cordelia says, I heard she put her leg through the glass table. I agree. What I'll say is this. Sarah's story about what happened that day is not the truth. I don't know what the truth is. But we didn't hear it come out of Sarah's mouth. My point is that whenever there has been a situation where Sarah has been the aggressor or could potentially get in trouble, what happens? The story is that they were just playing, that it was a game. Swords was a game. Wrong ass hide and go seek was a game. You see what I'm saying? So, okay, Michelle wants everybody to know that the situation going on with her hair is just a bad cut. It's not the result of a hat. It's not the result of anything. It's just not a good cut. I'm glad to see his family in court. I know I think Mr. GST, I think I'm waiting with all the anticipation in my body to hear what the deal is. And I got to say, I don't know what's going on in Orange County right now, weather-wise, but it's chilly here in Florida. And I'm talking about Florida chilly, not the people who get snow every year on a regular basis and live in penguin land cold. Obviously, y'all are colder than Florida. I'm talking about cold for Florida. Florida does not get cold. It's not supposed to. Now, I think as I'm looking at this paperwork, see this right here? This to me looks bona fide. So I'm thinking that this might be maybe just this piece, not the ones up underneath here, but just this piece here, I think is probably what she intends to say. Oh, now you know how to work a microphone, Owens? Well, good for you. Fantastic. Titanium thinks that Sarah has, Titanium said, maybe she has multiple speeches for depending on what the judge says. Possibly. Although I think her speech comes before sentencing. She's allowed an allocution, and then the judge gives her the sentence. I think is what happened. So I don't know how she's in that courtroom without a jacket or wearing a sweatshirt over her jail uniform. I don't think so, Jennifer. I don't think he has had his evaluation. Yeah, it's cold. It's 26 degrees, Angela. Unacceptable. Let me just see what we're currently sitting at here. 64. Now, I know to most people, 64 degrees sounds perfectly pleasant and perfectly fine. And it would be if this was not Florida. Okay? No me gusta. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to mute because I have a human moment. I'll be right back. Behave, please.
Calling State of Florida versus Sarah Boone, 2020 CF 2603, State.
Dean Cacciatore on behalf of the state. William J. for the state.
Defense.
James Owens for Sarah Boone.
Ms. Boone is seated at counsel's table. Ma'am, if you could please raise your right hand, Madam Clerk's going to go ahead and swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Ma'am, can you state your full name and date of birth for the record for us?
Sarah Boone, 10-10-77.
We are here for a sentencing. The jury returned a verdict on October 25, finding you, Ms. Boone, guilty of murder in the second degree. We're running a little bit late this afternoon. I apologize for that. I was in court all morning and took the opportunity to review all of your submittals from earlier this morning, Mr. Owens, including the victim or the character statements, the psychological evaluation by Dr. Harper, the motion for downward departure, the motion for new trial, and the state's response to same. Before we proceed with any sentencing in this matter, the court needs to address the defendant's motion for new trial and the state's response to the defendant's motion for new trial. Anything in addition you'd like to argue at this time, Mr. Owens, over and above what is contained in your motion, sir?
No, sir.
State.
No, sir.
All right. After reviewing the motion and the state's response to same, the defendant's motion for a new trial is denied. Based on the court's review of the record, the court's participation in the trial, and the review of all the evidence, and the court's prior findings and rulings at trial and prior thereto. With that, I believe that we're prepared to proceed with sentencing at this time. The court has reviewed the pre-sentencing investigation prepared by the Department of Corrections. Are there any housekeeping matters that we need to address, Mr. J. or Mr. Cacciatore, before we proceed?
Not from the state.
Are there any housekeeping matters from your side of the ledger, sir, that we need to address, Mr. Owens?
Judge, I do have 4 lay witnesses that are going to testify. I've got Dr. Harper here to testify. Of course, my client's going to testify. But one of the 4 lay witnesses wants to appear by Zoom. She lives up in Minnesota. I don't know if that's allowed.
We don't have an objection to that. One of our witnesses will be providing an impact statement, would also like to appear on the court's virtual link as well.
Okay, so stipulated. If you need it, just let Anita know, and I could have her email it to you right now, the link.
We do have the link. She's waiting to get on, I guess.
Who might it be, sir? Several people.
It should be Lana Albert.
She is here, sir. She's in the, she's viewing, her camera's off and she's, microphone is muted, but she's in the lobby.
Okay.
All right, with that, State, you may proceed.
Your Honor, at this time, we would like to take an impact statement from, I believe, Anna Torres, which you will be appearing virtually.
I see several guests, but I do not see a Anna Torres in the virtual lobby, sir.
Well, I think while maybe she's having some issue logging on, we have also in-person witnesses.
We can proceed with those first, sir.
Call Lana Torres.
Please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Ma'am, good afternoon. Could you state and spell your name for the record for us?
My name is Blanca Torres.
Okay. Ma'am, you can go ahead.
I just want to tell Sarah Boone that I don't hate her for what she did. And I always remember that evening when that lady came into my door and she knocked at the door. And she asked for my name. I tell her my name. And then she said, "Can I come in?" I said, "Okay, yes." And she told me to sit down. I never think that was going to be my son. And then she said my son was dead. Since that day, I can't sleep. It's hard for me to remember that moment. My son is not here no more. She don't only kill my son, she killed a father, a brother, an uncle. It's been hard. I'm a family because all the brothers, they will always work together. But now it's like something real. Love is missing. Sometimes when I look out the window, I'm waiting for him to come and say, "Mom, I love you." She was always there. She called me. I miss that mommy. The last time that I talked to him was at 12 o'clock in January, New Year. He came to my bed and said, "Mom." He woke me up and I said, "Mom." I love you. Happy New Year. Since that day, I don't see him no more. He was my son. I love him. And I miss him a lot. And my family miss him a lot too. But I don't hear. But you know what? I was blessed. She ain't gonna be blessed like me because I have my son. I raised him. I have his children, my granddaughter, my grandson, and she don't gonna be able to have that. And I did. I raised him. He wasn't perfect, but he was a good son. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. State anything further from this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, his poor mom.
You may call your next victim impact statement.
Victoria Torres.
I do.
Ma'am, could you state and spell your name for the record for us, please?
Victoria Torres. My name is Victoria Torres. George is my brother. Unfortunately, my family has experienced two horrifying tragedies.
It's his sister, Titanium.
I just want to make it clear that George deserves justice. As far as my other brother and Sarah deserve to rot in jail. Sarah has caused a lifetime of pain, a lifetime of horrible images, a lifetime of hearing my brother George plead for his life. This is just this moment for all of you. For me and my family, it's forever. Such a simple thing as using a suitcase is so triggering. I try not to close it all the way. I leave at least like 2 or 3 inches for the zipper. And it might sound crazy, but it just helps me. She really has flipped my family's life upside down. And I just hope that we can truly get justice for my brother. And I just want to tell the team thank you so much for everything they did. Thank you.
Thank you. State anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Your Honor, could we see if Ms. Anna Torres has been able to make it online?
Anna is his daughter.
Do not see an Anna Torres in the lobby, sir. I have lots of guests, HHSA, Mr. Beck, Lana Albert, Jason Gunn.
Neither did I, Trulia. Neither did I. That just did not even cross my mind. And it seems so obvious. Like, I actually feel bad that it never crossed my mind.
Your Honor, is there a cap to the link as to the number of individuals?
Not to my knowledge.
Could we just have just a moment?
Yes.
I wonder if one of the guests is Anna and that she just hasn't changed her name. It is. It's so sad. Oh, yes. Sarah does not people well. It's not going to be fun for her at all in the clink. Me too, MK. MK says, I wish they would have to face the podium. I wish they would have faced the podium towards her. So she had to see face to face what pain she's caused. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I know that they want the victims, when they're giving their statements, it's not to address the perpetrator, but it is to address the judge, because the judge is the one that's going to decide the sentencing. But I do think that they should adjust the podium in a way that the perpetrator, in this case, Sarah Boone, 10-10-77, so that she has to see. He did. He said Anna, Rachel. Is that not his daughter? I might have heard you, Crime Crochet and Coiffe. Okay, good. Thank you, Rachel. I sometimes, sometimes I don't trust my own brain and like what I remember anymore. And I'm not even sure why that is or when it started, but Crime Crochet. She just sits there so devoid of any emotion. Like, think back, you guys, just while we're kicking it, while she was testifying, okay? Scared for her life, according to her, right? It's not, I've seen people who have had to use deadly force in a situation they were not even related to the person, right? This is a stranger situation, like stranger on stranger use of deadly force. And the person who had to use the deadly force is upset, recalling the events. They're emotional. Some level of emotion, zero from her. And when you think about it, when she says that they were one soul, two bodies, isn't that how, that's one of the ways that she described. I mean, it was George's saying, but she believed it too, and talked about how much she loved him and the connection and whatnot. And yet nothing, just absolutely nothing. Like, I'm telling you guys, I really think that if we could hear inside Sarah's brain, she would be blaming George.
Mr. Owens, given the fact that the victim's daughter is having difficulties with...
Is that her, Anna Victoria Torres?
Yes, sir.
Is that it? Is that who it is? All right, ma'am, good afternoon. Can you hear us?
Good afternoon. I can hear you.
Okay, could you please state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Anna Victoria Torres, ANAVICTORIA TORRES.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I understand that you'd like to provide a statement to the court at this time. You may proceed.
Oh yeah, Owen's going to be on that list.
Okay. Okay. So I'll be speaking for myself and my two siblings. The murder of our father has impacted us on so many levels and in different ways. I myself, for the first year, would wake up screaming every morning or night, wishing I was having a nightmare, only to wake up to remember all over again that my father is gone and I'll never be able to hear him say he loves me ever again. To know my siblings have been affected in such a way that they are now different. They have had a piece of their heart ripped away from them, all while her son gets to hear his mother's voice and see her alive. It's pathetic. Because of you, Sarah, my sister is heartbroken. Because of you, Sarah, my brother is left wondering when he will ever see his father again. The loss of my father has left me with chronic depression and anxiety. Seeing any moments of fatherly love or kindness being shown between others in real life or even on TV leaves me in complete shambles. Seeking therapy was a must in order to navigate through my workday without a random breakdown. Thoughts of my father's demise still enter my mind ever so often. I'm left either angry, sad, or sick to my stomach to think of how his final moments were. George Torres, my incredible father. Not only was he my father, but my best friend. My personal comic provided me with wisdom and knowledge, creative and loving dad, an older brother, an uncle, a cousin, a friend, a son, and above all, our father. He was human and deserved to be treated as such. My father, George Torres, was one of a kind, an absolute gem. Unfortunately, his light was dimmed on earth by evilness, but with us, we will forever make his name live on. Especially Sarah, I pray that you see his face when you see him at night. That is it.
Thank you. Anything further, State?
No, Your Honor.
Anything further of this witness?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am. State,
Thank you.
anything further?
No other impact statements, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other witnesses or evidence at this point in time, State?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Owens, you may proceed, sir.
Ms. Diane Smith.
No phone, who dis?
I have no issue with her being at the podium. If you want to move about the well to conduct your examination, that's fine, Counselor. Ma'am, come on up. Come on up to this podium right here, ma'am. If you could, raise your right hand. Madam Clerk's going to go ahead and swear you in.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth?
Ma'am, could you state and spell your name for the record for us?
I have no idea who this is.
S-M-I-T-H.
Okay, thank you very much. Counselor, you may inquire.
And Ms. Smith, tell the court a little bit about you.
I was a chaplain at the 33rd Street Jail for 30 years.
And have you been a chaplain at the jail here in Orange County?
Yes, Orange County Jail
Is that the same
for
jail
30
you're
years.
referring to?
Uh-huh.
Oh, she's the chaplain.
That period of time, did you have occasion to meet with Sarah Boone?
I did.
And was it over the course of how long?
I've known her 4 years.
And if you could, tell the court what you'd like to say.
Okay. Well, I first met Sarah. She came in. We have a Christian dorm, and Sarah enrolled in our Christian program. And she was in my classes for a year. And she was very sincere in her efforts to change her life and to be a better person. And I found her very helpful. She was kind and good to people. She loved to serve. And she helped the new girls that would come in, the younger girls. She would mother them and be very kind and very helpful. And then after she graduated from the program, I was her counselor for the other 3 years. And I always found her, very sincere and, trying to do better. I spoke with many inmates that knew her and was associated with her. And they spoke very highly of her and said that, she was helpful and kind and tried to help other people. And I just found her to be, very sincere and trying to be a very good person and change and help people.
Was the Bible involved at all?
Oh, yes, it was all spiritual. Yes, it was spiritual growth.
Okay, I gotta say this, you guys. I'm sorry. I don't like to interrupt, but for Pete's sake, was the Bible involved at all? Mr. Owens, bruh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Do you even listen to the witnesses that are your witnesses and what comes out of their mouth before you ask a question? This ain't even a good question. This isn't even one of those, you got to lay foundation questions. Get out of here, bruh.
Plus character, growth in character, trying to just be a better person in general. She liked to serve other people, she would help the girls wash their clothes and show them around and teach. But spiritually, she grew very, very great spiritually.
Thank you.
Hang on, ma'am, just one second.
Ma'am?
Hang on just one second, Ms. Smith. State, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you.
I'd like to call Christina Pena. It's right here.
Yeah, it's fine, Counselor. Thank you.
Listen, Rachel, okay? She works as a chaplain. That makes her a holy vessel. And I have done some things in my life, mainly a lot of premarital things, even though I'm still with the person that I did the premarital things with. I am not taking no chance because I already know that when my time comes and I got to get up there to be judged, I know that I am going to need letters of explanation, character witnesses, all kinds of things. I'm probably going to be put in like a side area where they hold you while they think it over. Know what I mean? So I'm not fixing to say nothing about a holy vessel at all.
Ma'am, come on up if you can. Raise your right hand. Madam Clerk's going to go ahead and swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Ma'am, if you could state and spell your name for the record for us.
Christina Pena, Christina Pena.
All right, you may inquire, sir.
Ms. Pena, how old are you?
31,
And where do you live?
Orlando.
Now, it's my understanding, Ms. Pena, that you were in the county jail with Sarah Boone.
Yes.
Oh, the celly.
In the same cell together?
Yes, I was in there for 4 years, but we were together for 3.
Okay. And I understand ultimately the charges against you were dismissed,
Who gives a shit, Owens?
so you were released on what day?
April 4th this year, I think.
2024?
2023.
2023. So you've been out for a pretty while.
I've been out for like 6 or so months now. Yeah, since April
Okay.
of this year, actually. Sorry.
April of 2024. And you said y'all were bunkmates there together for about 3 years?
Yeah.
I would assume that y'all got to know each other pretty well.
We did.
Okay. And if you could, if you'd like to speak on her behalf to the judge.
Yes. Sarah's one of my best friends, my only.
Take your time.
She's helped me with a lot. Spiritually and like growing, and she helps everybody. She's always, I don't know, she helped me a lot, and she would come to me, she'd talk to me all the time, and pick me up when I was down, or if I didn't know something, she just, good, I don't know, she was a good person to me. She just, mistakes happen, and she always helped people. She was always helping everybody in the dorm. She, even like her artwork, she did art, anybody need any help or needed anything, they'd come to her and she'd help them. And even if they, did wrong to her, she would still go back and help them and praise with them and pray over them and everything. It's just
And was she a little bit older than you?
yeah.
How much older was she?
40 in her 40s.
Did you think of her as maybe an aunt or a big sister? What
A
was
big sister, yeah. She was like a big sister, like a sister I never had. Because I have brothers, so I never. We clicked right away. I don't know. We'd be walking out in the backyard, and she just would always try and talk to me. But I'm a quiet person, and I don't trust a lot of people. So for me to open up and trust somebody, it's a lot. So.
And obviously y'all were there under difficult circumstances. Did she assist you in getting through that?
Yes, and she helped me a lot with my my case, and I would help her with with hers too. We're both. Justice is not what it is. I don't know
Bless you.
We both helped each other out. I don't know. It's just,
Ms. Danielle, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any questions, State?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you.
Ms. Hill?
Okay. We've been over this many, many times. A mistake. What is a mistake? A mistake is putting a red sock in with all whites in the washing machine. That's a mistake. A mistake is knowing you're lactose intolerant and drowning your salad in ranch, or dipping your chicken tenders in ranch when you know that you're lactose intolerant. That is a mistake. Okay. Taking another person's life is not a mistake. That's just so, I don't, no.
Judge,
Yes, sir.
after Ms. Hill, I want to take Ms. Albert.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Mistake is when you were supposed to take exit 5 and instead you took exit 4. That's a mistake. So you know what I'm saying,
Ma'am, good afternoon. Could you
Shacto,
state and spell your
about
name
the
for record
ranch.
for us?
My name is Mariela Hill, Mariela, last name Hill, Hill.
Thank you. You may proceed, sir.
Ms. Hill, briefly tell us a little bit about yourself.
I met Sarah in jail. I spent 3 months in jail and went through a lot of unfortunate circumstances myself.
All right, now this was in the Orange County Jail here in Orlando?
Orange County Jail.
And when
Owens.
would that have been? Do you recall the dates?
Yes, it was April.
This is another person that she spent time in jail with.
2024.
Yes.
Okay. And did you develop a relationship with Sarah Boone over the course of that 3 months?
Yes.
Oh, Shacto, yeah.
We met
Mm-hmm.
when I was moved to the B dorm, and I needed help with a form that I needed to complete, and one of the COs pointed to Sarah to help me out. And since that moment, we became really good friends, and she was so helpful, so kind, so respectful, and loving, not just to me, but to everyone. And I have nothing but good things to say about her, her character, her loving heart, and how deep her faith is, her faith in God, and believing in justice for everyone.
Well,
That's what I believe.
good for Sarah having a lot of
State any
faith. That'll help her
questions?
get through prison.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hill. I
I
appreciate
don't
it.
know what else to say. You know what else? I
Miss
do have
Albert?
something
Good
to say
afternoon,
really
ma'am.
quick. Hold on. I do have something to say really quickly. Sarah is a lifetime resident of, for the most part, of Orange County. Like, they moved from Georgia to Florida when Sarah was 3. Okay. Not one person from her real life before she was arrested for this crime can come and speak for her.
Can you hear me? This is Judge Kranick. And if you can, I would ask you to turn on your camera and unmute yourself at this time, please.
Sir, how do I unmute turn on my camera? I know how to unmute, but I'm not sure how to turn the camera on.
Turn the volume down.
Yeah, you're one to talk.
So, ma'am,
Is that better?
when you join the link, there should have been an option for like a pull down on the left-hand side of the screen for you to open out or turn on a camera. I don't know what device you're appearing on, if it's a cell phone or a laptop.
It is an iPhone. Should I try to re-enter the room?
Yeah, try to do that. There should be an option for you to pick a camera. You'll either select the default camera, and hopefully we'll be able to see you at that time.
Okay, let me, just give me 1 second.
Owen's telling somebody how to turn down the dadgum volume. Oh, that's priceless. Wow. Wowie, wow, wow. Grandma Sherry, Your Honor, I am not a cat. Can y'all imagine if it were me and I had Alice? Alice's face and me speaking.
Did that work? Can you see me?
Oh,
I cannot.
Shoot. Yeah, it's saying default camera. It's saying front camera. I chose it. It didn't show my face or anything like that.
probably have to go into your settings and give permission.
My technological skills are limited. State?
Hey, Gary.
Objection to the witness making their statement here telephonically.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, Miss Albert, good afternoon. If you could just state and spell your name for the record for us, please.
Certainly. Lana, Lana, Albert, Albert.
Okay. All right, Mr. Owens is going to ask you some questions. And if you could just answer them, ma'am, I would greatly appreciate it. Sir, you can proceed.
Miss Albert, do you have the ability to turn your volume down?
Yes, I just did. I can't hear you very well when I do that, though.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you, but very, very quietly.
How about now?
Yes, I can hear you. Am I okay?
Yeah, you sound a lot better. You were too loud earlier.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I'm done. I'm sorry, y'all.
All right, Miss Albert, tell the court a little bit about yourself briefly.
Did she,
Well,
poor
I live in
Linda?
Minnesota.
Wow.
I currently have end-stage renal disease. Before I became disabled, I was a business owner in the Twin Cities here.
All right, and how old are you?
I am 50 years old.
All right, and you're considered disabled?
Yes, I am.
All right. And have you had an occasion since this event
Okay, I
to
can't
establish
with
a
you.
relationship with Sarah Boone?
Yes, I have. We have been friends for the past a little over 11 months.
How
Oh,
do y'all communicate?
11 months.
We've communicated a lot of phone calls, lots of tablet back and forth, and a lot of letters as well. I'd say many hours of time spent with each other.
All right, and do you want to speak on her behalf here today?
I would, please.
All right, would you please tell the court what you would like for the court to know?
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Your Honor, for the privilege of speaking on behalf of my friend Sarah Boone. I also want to extend my heartfelt condolences to everyone here affected by this terrible tragedy, which has brought us all here and listening in. Many articles and videos and opinions of Sarah have gone out in the airways and on the webs. Opinions that have been formed and commented on so much that it's hard not to give into the temptation to treat people like a comic book or a fictional character.
Look, ma'am, I'm going to stop you right there because all of my observations have been accurate and yet hilarious. So, no regrets.
In the case of my friend Sarah, the words narcissist, Karen, villain, many other things, they roll off the tongue with little regard to the humanity that is dismissed so flippantly. And under a lot of circumstances, I was one of those people, as I have a love of true crime. And becoming friends with Sarah has shown me that there's a lot more depth to the people I see on the screen. I'd like to share with the world and with the court about the Sarah Boone that I know. Sarah Boone is a kind, honest, and good person. The Sarah Boone I know is one who loves animals, especially the kind who are damaged and defenseless. How many of us would take in and pour love for a hearing impaired and a sight impaired pair of dogs?
Many
She has
people.
a natural instinct to help reach out and give of herself. Her time and energy and love, especially to those who are hurting or damaged. You all have seen her fight for her own life and truth here.
Look, I don't give a rat's fat kneecap if she is the miracle worker of dog owners, okay? Don't care. She's a murderer. The end.
I tell you this, she fights even harder for those she loves, giving time, attention, and companionship without a single thought for her own gain or what somebody can do for her. And one huge example is in the matter of our friendship. As I said before, I have end-stage renal disease caused by a genetic illness called polycystic kidney disease. As my life has progressed, things I have taken for granted have been taken away from me. I could not appear in court in person because I can no longer walk, as my dialysis treatments have affected the circulation of my legs and has confined me to a wheelchair. To say that my life has radically changed is an understatement. Through it all, I have many friends and family I love and cherish. Sarah has distinguished herself differently in this way. In the course of getting to know her, I started sharing the progressing state of my health. It was like lightning had struck her. The moment Sarah had learned the depth of my struggles health-wise, she straight up offered strenuously to donate a kidney to me. I got to tell you this. I hope she's not mad for me showing this, but she had no hesitation, no concern over personal risk or personal gain. I want to convey to this, out and around the world, that is merely offering is a good and heroic act. I've had many friends. I've not had one outside of my brother who has offered me a kidney. That is huge. I don't have anything of equal value to give to her. And that's not the actions of a narcissist. She did it as a reflex action, as a good person. After the verdict came in October, we spoke that night.
This is Sarah's Amy
She
Lang.
doesn't get mad at me again for disclosing this, but
What's she gonna do?
out of all the shock and seriousness of what had happened in the court, the thing that made her emotionally break was that she realized she could no longer be a donor to me. I mean, I was sitting there like, hey, you know, it's going to be okay. But she was so broken up, she couldn't help me. That's a friend. She is not, nor does she come up anywhere remotely close to being a narcissist. Now, one more thing before I go. Social media has worked to rip the blindfold off of Lady Justice, to take the sword out of her right hand and start assassinating Sarah's character. However, the scales are the balance. As it says in Psalm 85, mercy and truth are met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed each other. Justice isn't justice without mercy. Our pursuit of righteousness isn't complete and right without peace. Thank you, Your Honor, for Thank you.
State, any questions? No, Your Honor. Any follow-up, Mr. Owens?
No, Judge.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Albert. I appreciate you.
Like to call Dr. Harper? You want her on the stand or?
I'm okay with her on the stand.
On the stand?
No, she can be right now. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Whoever is on screen, please mute your mic.
I don't see Kevin.
No, she'd be at the podium. That's fine.
Clearly, Mr. Owens misunderstood as well. This is a
Doctor, good afternoon.
difficult
Please raise
day.
your right hand. Madam Clerk's going to go ahead and swear you in. If you could, doctor, state and spell your name for the record for us, please.
Dr. Julie Harper, Julieharper.
All right, thank you. Counsel, you may inquire.
And Dr. Harper, we all know we were here a few weeks back for the trial, and your testimony said
Oh my God, just ask the question.
about your testimony, but if you could, I know that you prepared a report, and we have submitted that to the court, which the court has read, and the state has a copy. And I don't know if you want to refer to that or just speak on your own about Sarah Boone and what you did to assess her, and then any opinion.
I think that during trial testimony, I reviewed all of the documents, excuse me, and all of the records that were available. They're documented in my report as well. In addition to the forensic clinical interviews that I conducted, I also have had the opportunity to talk to her brother, Philip Paulson, in the interim since the trial, and I included his information in my report as to her family background.
If you could, give the court a synopsis of what your findings are, or what you uncovered from the brother, whatever you think the court needs to hear this relevant material.
Yeah, here's
keep it brief, but I'll outline the highlights that I feel like haven't been conveyed before, which is an understanding of Ms. Boone's early family life, in that she is the middle child of her parents' union, and that her parents did not have a happy marriage. They didn't provide an opportunity to have a good role model as to how to have a partnership together. Ms. Boone was born in close proximity to her youngest brother, 11 months apart. And in my clinical experience and training, I would say that that disrupted her attachment with her mother, some being close in proximity with her younger brother, whose temperament just seemed to suit a relationship with her mother better than her own. So ultimately, Ms. Boone bonded with her father. Though he wasn't described by either child as an affectionate person, he was somebody that was there for her at sporting events and more of a primary parent for her in that way. His untimely death by heart attack during her high school years was marked by her brother as a turning point for her in how she was acting at home. Her demeanor, her relationship with her mother took a turn for the worse. She was not coping well. She was using substances based on what her brother was saying. And it is my opinion that that early lack of foundational relations with her mom and not feeling very secure, the death of her father, destabilized her. That's a period of your life when you're leaving high school, when you should have formed a very solid foundation to go out in the world. And I don't think that that's what she had at that moment. She bonded easily with Mr. Boone, and you can see that there are elements of that early difficulty with her relationships because she took on a parentified role, in my opinion, during that relationship. And therefore, there's a power imbalance in that she was making decisions and not, again, having an equal relationship. I think that that led her to a sense of being a need to be right, a need to feel like she is the one that's making good decisions, to have some ego support by being in the right all the time with Mr. Boone. And I think that that led to some behaviors that she carried over into her relationship with Mr. Torres, in that she's parentified around him and acting more like a parent-child relationship, being a facilitator of housing and applications for jobs and things like that. So again, there's a power imbalance that I think was very seriously misaligned as her brother and the property manager of their apartment had verified. They saw her being abused, physically abused in serious ways, or the effects of the abuse in bruising or calls to them. It is my opinion that she called for help, but when people got tired of her not leaving Mr. Torres, they stopped responding to those calls. And basically, Ms. Boone handled things on her own. And as other people with healthier boundaries probably would have left, she being acting out the pattern of intimate partner violence did not leave. She stayed long past when it would have been smart for others, or others would have said to leave, sorry. The undergirding of that not leaving the relationship is a long-term anxiety problem that became post-traumatic stress disorder. There is an earlier instance of exposure to traumatic stress in that she was the person in the hospital after her father died who found him having students perform CPR on his dead body. So that was an early exposure to high traumatic stress, witnessing that incident, and based on her brother's description, that was something that changed her. When a person is exposed to numerous compounding stressors, their adrenaline system is changed. It alters your body. And things that might be an otherwise neutral situation, you tend to have a cascading adrenaline response to that. And I think that that ultimately, for her, as she succumbed to other instances of serious physical abuse from her partner, became post-traumatic stress disorder. I do think that that is a condition that is still existent even while she's in jail. it's something that she needs treatment for, because those triggers are unmitigated, meaning that she hasn't really had the kind of therapy to address them and reduce her adrenaline and anxiety responses when she thinks of past instances of traumatic events that have happened to her. You can also respond to post-traumatic stress disorder clinically by using antidepressant therapy, and that would be something that could assist her ultimately in reducing symptoms if she had counseling and antidepressant therapy.
Now, Dr. Harper, I know that you had testified at the trial that, in your opinion, she suffered as a battered spouse, the syndrome that is legally recognized in Florida, in the courts of Florida.
That's correct.
And I understand that is tied to this intimate partner violence, which is maybe the same thing, but there's a complex mental health issue that ties into that. Can you speak on the complexity of that whole cycle that one such as Sarah Boone and Jose Torres were involved in?
Certainly. So intimate partner violence is not a diagnosis. It's a pattern of events that occur between two partners in which the power dynamic is altered by the physical abuse or behaviors that are controlling in nature to the point that someone's safety is threatened. It's common for victims of that to have a complex mental health condition, often including depression, anxiety, and substance abuse problems. And what might be substance abuse to cope with the problem, like numbing oneself, will sometimes result in its own diagnosis. The pattern of intimate partner violence, I think we covered in the trial, but just in summary about that, there are phases in which at first the bonding of the two partners might be something positive. They've got something in common or have pleasurable time together. And then the secondary phase of that is when there is change in dynamic and some kind of traumatic event occurs, some instance of physical violence. And then there's a third phase in which it's like a honeymoon phase where they're trying to right the relationship. So in phase one, when they're having something pleasurable, the tone shifts. Phase two, there is some kind of incident. And phase three, there's a honeymoon phase. As that pertains to anxiety, I think that a person who suffers from intimate partner violence never stops experiencing that hypervigilance, waiting for the next instance of violence to occur. So even though they may look happy, they might be experiencing something positive, they've not really relaxed because their memory that could or will occur again is still in their mind. So they haven't fully stopped experiencing intimate partner violence. It's just what phase of the process they're in.
Now, and Dr. Harper, it goes into more detail in your report, which I supplied to the court, which is a total of 11 pages, and I believe that's confidential document.
That's what's been marked. I don't believe it's been filed in the court file.
Okay.
If it has, that's something if it needs to be, it's something we can address. I have reviewed it. It does reflect confidential privilege information on the first page. I don't believe it's been filed in the court file unless you did it. Okay. It already has been? All right, appreciate it. Okay, excellent. Thank you, sir.
Oh, so we can't see it. Hey, Carolina, good to see you, babe.
Yes.
And we've listed several factors under paragraph 3, the capacity of the defendant to appreciate the criminal nature of her actions and conform with the requirements of law were substantially impaired, that she requires specialized treatment for a mental disorder that is not related to substance use or addiction, although you agree that she does suffer from alcohol use disorder.
So she has an underlying mental health disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I additionally diagnosed her with alcohol use disorder.
Hey, Sprinkle Donuts, good to see all you guys. Thanks for being here.
For a mental disorder that's not related to the substance use or addiction,
That's correct.
and you agree that she's amenable for treatment?
Yes.
And you would agree that she acted under extreme duress in this unique homicide case?
Yes.
And you would agree that a unique completeness of the circumstances, the facts and circumstances surrounding the case, that the offense was committed in a unsophisticated manner.
Yes.
And it was isolated.
That's my understanding as well. that-
Other than she had the charge where both of them were charged at one time, and I think she had the strangulation allegation, the felony case that was ultimately dismissed when both of them were arrested.
She had a prior felony case. Facts are different, of course, than this particular case we're here today.
Dr. Harper, I believe that's all the questions I've got, unless you would like to say, if I've missed anything, of course.
No, I think-
Okay, and if not, it's in the report.
Yes.
Any questions?
Yes, may she take a stand so I can take the podium?
Yes, that's fine. You may inquire, sir.
In pages 1 and 2 of your report, you go through the sources of your information, correct?
Yes.
And that would include 8 interviews that you had with her from the course of August of 2020 through September of 2024, correct?
There were 9 interviews, but 8 dates of service are listed.
You did the Miller Forensic Assessment of Symptoms Test, or MFAST,
That's right.
Inventory of Legal Knowledge, ILK,
That's right.
Clinician-Administered PTSD Scale 5 examination.
Yes.
You consulted with her attorney.
Yes.
Videotaped interviews from this court case number of Sarah Boone, interview part 1 and 2, Abraham Moreno interview, Brandon Moats interview, Brian Boone interview, Juan Torres interview, and Melissa Sexton interview, correct?
Yes.
You reviewed the autopsy photos.
Yes.
You reviewed some of the digital forensic exhibits, including the Apple iPhone XS and a Samsung SMJ 327 T1 photographs from those 2 devices.
Yes.
You reviewed Bates stamped discovery pages 1 through 413.
That's correct.
The
Wow.
crime scene photos are photos of a scene taken on June 19th of 2020.
Yes.
Aspire Health records.
Yes.
And who do those pertain to?
Aspire Health records are for Sarah Boone.
Florida Hospital Medical Group records.
Yes.
And who do those records pertain to?
That is also for Sarah Boone.
And Aspire, is that a mental health treatment facility?
It has an emergency department record, but that would be the place where she was detained under the Baker Act.
And it is routine and common in the practice of forensic psychology or psychiatry to rely on the records of other such practitioners.
As a source of information, sure.
Okay, so I just want to explain what's going on here. This is the portion of the sentencing hearing where the defense is putting on their mitigating factors evidence. So there would be testimony. This is par for the course.
You reviewed the deposition of Dr. Tanya Warner.
I did.
You reviewed the trial testimony of Sarah Boone, Brian Boone, Dr. Michael Brannon, Dr. Tanya Werner, correct?
Yes.
The jury verdict form dated 10/25/24.
Yes.
Witness list notice of filing amended
Yes.
on this case. Records of Jorge Torres or George Torres involving case numbers 2019 MM 5114, a 911 call and PDF, case 2019 MM 7193, case 2019 MM 7193 Torres Public Records, case 2019 MM 7193 Torres Photos, Central Florida Primary Care Records, Advent Health Orlando Medical Records, correct?
Yes.
And those latter records that I just mentioned, those for Mr. Torres and not Ms. Boone, correct?
That's right.
Then you reviewed Sarah Boone written correspondence, Sarah's listing of domestic violence incidents, Sarah's writings regarding missing days of work and Baker Act, and a 74-page life story.
That's right.
And then case 2018 CF 10573, public records and photos,
Yes.
and a telephone interview with Melissa Sexton, the property manager, which you conducted on October 1st, 2024.
Yes.
And a telephonic interview with Philip Paulson, the defendant's brother, on November 26, 2024.
Yes.
Where has Ms. Boone been housed and living since February of 2020?
At the Orange County Jail.
And does the Orange County Jail provide mental health services to inmates?
It does.
And you already testified you would routinely, as a forensic psychologist, review records kept of a psychological or psychiatric treatment of a patient or a client, correct?
Yes.
In this particular case, have you reviewed any mental health records generated by the Orange County Jail for Ms. Boone?
No, I have not had the opportunity to do that.
So for the last 58 months or so, if she was being seen by the mental health treatment staff at the jail, you have not reviewed those records?
That's correct.
And they are overseen at the jail, in the Orange County Jail, by a psychiatrist. Are you aware or not?
If the person's level of mental health intervention deems them eligible for psychiatry, then they will.
And any diagnosis or lack of diagnosis that they have had during the course of the last 58 months, you are unaware of because you did not review the records?
That's right.
I don't have any other questions.
Any redirect examination?
No, Judge.
All right, thank you.
One question. Dr. Harper, I didn't ask you to review those records, did I?
No.
Thank you.
But those records would have been important.
Judge, I believe you said it at the very beginning that I had submitted several letters on behalf of Ms. Boone, and she didn't hear that, but I wanted her to be made aware.
Yes, ma'am.
And you don't actually read those letters into the record, but you did read them.
I have reviewed them. They're in my binder here. How many do I have? Yes. Give me a second.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me, Sarah Boone?
I have 6 handwritten letters. First one is 1 page. Second one is 2 pages. Third one is 1 page. Fourth one is 2 pages. Fifth one is 2 pages. Sixth one is 2 pages. I have a typed letter from Diane Smith, the assistant chaplain. I have another typed letter from a Nicole Ray, a typed letter from a Stephanie L., a typed letter from Philip Paulson, an email from Lana Albert, 2 pages in length, and a 2-page email from a Danielle Parsons.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Judge, I would like to call Sarah Boone.
You may proceed.
If you could take this.
Yes, please.
Yeah, get her where she's can't get out.
Ms. Boone, you can be seated. You've been previously sworn.
Oh my God, still doesn't know how to work the dadgum mic, y'all. I'm done.
For the record, just state your name again.
Sarah Boone.
All right. Now, this is unlike a trial, so you're allowed to speak in a narrative form.
Here we go.
As I understand, you have taken some notes or written a letter that you want to read from, and then you want to speak to the court after that.
Yes.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and get started?
Hold on, you guys. Hold on. Brace yourselves, okay? We're only a little tiny bit behind, so okay, here we go. She's going to speak, and this is going to be poppycock, so let's hear it.
This is actually an edited version.
Oh my God.
I had a lot to say. I've had a lot of time to think about things, and I didn't really know how to put it on paper, and I didn't know how much I could say or how little I should say. So what I have here is, like I said, an edited version. But I would like to read the more important parts that I feel that everyone should know that wasn't said in my actual trial. And on top of what I have on paper, I have, this is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. So I wanted to read this, and then, if I may, I would like to address everyone in my apology on top of my statement.
You may proceed, ma'am.
Kintu suguroi is a kind of Japanese ceramic style which means to repair with gold. In this tradition, when a ceramic piece breaks, an artisan will fuse the pieces back together again using liquid gold or gold dust lacquer. So rather than being covered up, the breaks become more obvious and a brilliant new piece of art emerges from the brokenness. It embraces flaws, weakness, and imperfections, and also teaches the essence of resilience. Every crack in a ceramic piece is a part of its history, and each piece becomes more beautiful because it has been broken. This is the wisdom of Kintu suguroi. In my wisdom, and with all of my repairs, then, now, and ongoing, God is, has been, and will always be my artisan. Jose Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation, ongoing constitutional rights violations, second-degree murder, forced into being pro se. Just as gold is very precious,
Told y'all.
forgiveness is invaluable.
Told y'all.
Forgiveness is not an attempt to change or forget who, what, or how you've lived through to be so gold, but an act of grace, humility, and considerable self-compassion to be set free from sorrow. Withholding forgiveness denies your brilliance and adds even greater grief and deeper heartache, irreparable cracks on top of the already that no one deserves, no matter the pain or disappointment, untruths or injustice. It doesn't matter, as the more broken you are, even though now different than before, you've become more outstanding and more extraordinary. Above all, when you let go of blame, misunderstandings, excuses, give up your anger and cease from resentment, this is forgiven. And when you forgive, you heal. And when you heal, you move forward. My goal begins.
Hold on a minute. So now Sarah's Yoda, right? Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. All are roads to the dark side. Fantastic. Sarah is Yoda preaching about forgiveness while she has a stank tone, which I do have her sped up, but it's only 1.25. We can all still hear the tone. It's just faster. You sound super at peace, Sarah. And I'm sure the Torres family is so glad that you've forgiven them. They can rest easy now. What a joke.
With George Torres, and every time he slapped me, kicked, punched, spit on, raped, stabbed, choked, laughed at, pushed, pulled, dragged, whipped, tripped, stole from, lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded, made me cry. Every time he tried to end me, defeat, or destroy. I forgive George for beating me senseless, for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day, for ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture, destroying the television we watched together, for wrecking our townhome by breaking windows, punching holes in the walls and doors, ramming his entire body into glass doors, kicking in my front and back door over and over and over, for breaking or removing the locks from all of the doors and sometimes the knobs altogether, so I had nowhere to feel safe, including the sacred space of my son's room where he beat me bloody on his bed. For terrorizing and threatening my blind and deaf dogs by leaving the gate open I built to keep them safe, telling me he hoped I'd find their bloated dead body in the pond or scrape their remains off of the pavement, for kicking them off of the bed and throwing across the room because they were trying to protect me, for threatening to make me unrecognizable to my son by breaking all of the bones in my face, like his brother Moses did to him after he kept seeing all of the bruises from George beating me, like all of the times their father beat their mother, for all of the drunken rages and fist fights with so many neighbors when wandering into their apartments during hunting expeditions after I had escaped, for drowning me in liquor and wine because I didn't want to drink, causing me to urinate on myself, then butting the end of the bottle in my face, giving me 2 black eyes and a bloody nose, for making me experience what it is to be sodomized, threatening to kill my friends and the neighbors when they checked on me to make sure I was alive and in one piece, for threatening to burn down our townhome and set my car on fire because I got a job, for holding me hostage on weekends my son was supposed to come over by keeping my keys around his neck, my phone in his crotch, and a butcher knife stuck in the middle of the table as a warning not to ask anything or try to leave, for stabbing me in the leg and not letting me call 911 for an ambulance or seek help, where I nearly bled to death until I concocted a lie to save him from being arrested, for destroying my phone with a hammer because my son called, for me experiencing ever being arrested and after today, prison, for beating me almost blind, crushing my occipital lobe, for having me experience what it means to see stars like in the cartoons where a character has a tall lump on their head. I had that too, and many times, for dragging me downstairs by my hair in the middle of the night just to sit next to him, for taking my car driving drunk with my debit card to buy more alcohol while I slept, even after I kindly explained the importance of my car to take my son to school foremost, me to work, and he to his batterers intervention classes and probation officer meetings, where I would be forced to sit for hours in the parking lot waiting for him, for causing me so much trauma and pain mentally, physically, emotionally, I had to be hospitalized more than once, for destroying my reputation and integrity, for my M for murderer scarlet letter, not letting me feel safe to live, talk to other people, spend time with my son, have a job, friendships, simply go to the bathroom with the door closed, or go to sleep soundly or comfortably, I forgive George for lying, for him trying in so many ways, so many times, to end me with his terrifying love. I also forgive the Torres family, his mother and father foremost, also his 2 ex-wives and daughters, all for knowing who George was capable of and has done in the past, his history of violence and where he learned it, then to keep turning a blind eye when I would ask for help. All of his siblings, including Farrell Torres, who is now on his way to prison for stabbing the mother of their baby in the side of her head. For everyone who knew what George was doing to me, sometimes how and when, but allowed and enabled. I forgive them for caring too late. I hope they all ask themselves while quiet and comfortable in bed at night the uneasy question, what could I have done to stop this from happening to both of them? And after all the time Sarah tried to, by asking for help, from all of us and so many times. Another great contributor of my gold is social media, with its greed, insensitivity, deception, obvious exploitation, and advantageous gain from my criminal case as a whole, and for sentencing me by anticipation as a result of ignorance and hate.
No regrets.
Fabricated by the organized crime that is social media, which condemned me in the court of global public opinion since the beginning. My family law case is the new prey waiting to be picked apart and pillaged from me being made infamous by social media in my criminal case. It simply seems I cannot forgive and be forgiven and move forward. Social media has made me a pariah. It has caused great oppression and undeniable disadvantages, especially by broadcasting and manipulating my cases online. In my criminal case, as a result, my opportunities to be given a fair, proper, and uninfluenced, successful conclusion was heavily depleted and poisoned. I forgive them. Also, all of the media tycoons for not having a life of their own, trying so desperately to make themselves seem so right by making me appear so wrong. Forgiveness for prejudgment, ridiculous theatrics, lies, making and taking blood money from my and others' misfortunes, accidents, and catastrophes. It's all over their hands and their keyboards. And even after all that's been said and done, theorized, hypothesized, scrutinized, and blasphemed, in my case, still no one knows me.
Ma'am.
In the end, I forgive myself for not choosing my life sooner, for not being more brave, vigilant, bolder, and outspoken, stronger, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, for being hopeless, desperate, simple-minded, weak, and inexperienced. I forgive myself for not realizing I was enduring a life of domestic violence and that the vicious cycle of never ends. I had nothing to compare to. I've never been hit by a man ever before in my life. I was raised hitting a woman was wrong and should never happen. No excuse. I forgive myself for not escaping permanently, for not fighting back sooner to save myself, my son, my dogs, home, and car. Having 20/20 hindsight, thinking of everything I could have done differently or better to avoid the outcome. I think about this every day since. Also, of all the good days we had together, for him at least, while I was constantly in hyperdrive, high alert, and paranoid, making sure I did everything right all the time. If not, the great possibility I would be ended as George threatened me with so many times before. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster, and no matter how grotesque he may become, I still loved him, hoped, and forgave. I tried breaking the spell so he wouldn't be a monster anymore. I saw who he was inside. George made me then, now, and always love him for all of his cracks also. We made each other our own brilliant pieces of art from the cracks and repairs. Unfortunately, not all cracks can be. In all of my forgiveness, George is my greatest lesson and will forever be a part of me. I think of him every day and still speak to him when alone on the rec yard. I ask his forgiveness and that he looks for me at the gates of heaven so I can tell him how sorry I am, endlessly, and that I never stopped loving him. In all of it and still. When I first came to jail, I put my mat under my bed and cried all day and all night for months, only falling asleep from being so exhausted with grief. I wrote him letters. I wrote his family and his daughters, apologizing for asking for their forgiveness. But due to fear that my life or sons would be jeopardized, I did not send. I am sorry. I cannot begin to fathom any of their grief and sadness. Please forgive me. Almost everything reminds me of him, seeing my stab wound every day especially. It truly reminds me that all I really did live through. George haunts me. He is everywhere. I believe because I do still love him, think of him, and miss his laugh the most. In my heart, I know he is with me and understands that this tragedy was not intentional. I hope everyone can, his family foremost. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please wholeheartedly know that, and always, I would never. Forgive me, George. Forgive me, Torres family. Forgive me, Judge Cranick. To the entire planet, please forgive me. I graciously and humbly ask for consideration, for forgiveness to be extended instead of judgment, for reconciliation and restoration for all of us to move forward. My apology is profuse and ceaseless. Allow me, please, to brush off the muck, wipe the blood off of my face, and fix the cuts in my skin. I ask for understanding in what really happened and for how long, for second chances, repentance, and redemption, to advocate for all domestic violence survivors, to help them overcome, heal, and still hope, always, to make their voices heard, to confidently walk with all of their scars on the outside and the inside, to help them not ever become a casualty of domestic violence as so many others, to stop the abuse and maltreatment before it's too late. There is always hope, and you can survive. In my soft-spoken conclusion, I ask this: would I be the darling mother, celebrated woman of the year, if it were I who died? How many daughters, mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, nieces, and friends have been because they did? I am a survivor. Learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke oppressors, defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. Isaiah 1:17, all-encompassing, protect the abused.
Oh
Is that the end of your
my God.
gathering your thoughts? Did you want to make an oral statement?
Hold on just a minute. Owens, you really think this is a good idea to be asking her this? Are you kidding? Did you just sit through the same thing we sat through? Your letter's coming, Owens.
I do.
Oh, good.
Do that now.
Fantastic.
My statement, my verbal statement, is primarily to the Torres family, to
Oh.
the judge, to his daughters. I know you all know who I really am, and that I did care for George, and that I do still love George. I know you know that we had very many good days, and I take offense to the statement of
My God.
being said that this is just for a moment. Right now with me here in the courtroom in front of you all, this is just for a moment. But the moments before that, in order for me to be here, is endless. It's everlasting. The scars that I have on the inside, my outside scars have healed, except for my stab wound. But this has changed me as a person to see things differently and to understand things differently and to not be weak and just try to protect yourself, and forever, regardless of the time that I may receive from today, I forever will have this experience. I forever will have George Torres with me in my heart, in my mind, my body, and my soul. As he and I used to say that we were one soul split into two bodies. This is not just for a moment. It may be for everyone in this courtroom, but when I leave, this is forever. When you all leave, that this is forever. This is forever for everyone here and those who it matters to most. I am one of those who will experience this forever. I'm sorry. Words do not define my shame, and I don't know what else it is that I can say and convey to the Torres family how this happened. The ifs and whys and how really don't matter. It happened, and I'm sorry. words cannot describe. And I hope that everyone can forgive me, the Torres family most of all, and his daughters, because I know what he meant to them. And I don't think that anybody ever understood what he meant to me and I to him. And I ask for forgiveness.
I have just one or two questions.
Oh my God, Owen, shut your mouth.
And you can speak on it if you want or not. But this is a unique case, and one of the reasons it's so unique is that you were in jail for 4.5 years prior to your trial. And I understand that when you were brought up as a child that you did have some spirituality in your family, some church, some religion.
Always.
But I understand that you got away from that. Did you have a chance during the 4.5 years to look back at your spirituality?
Absolutely. You know, everyone supposes that this is one of the worst experiences of my life, and it's actually been one of my greatest.
What?
If I were not beaten to death, I was going to work myself to death on the outside, and I never had time to get back into my Bible and to pray and to be with the Lord. And I, being here incarcerated, have had time, of course, to get closer to God, to reacquaint myself to Him, and
We're being punked.
realize
This
what it's
cannot
all
be
about.
real.
This is all temporary, and when I say temporary, I don't mean by being set free in jail or from prison or wherever else. It means being set free and temporary, meaning that you work for something higher, you work for God, that you strive for your crown to be placed upon your head by Jesus Christ by being said, "You have done well, my good and faithful servant." I've always tried to be a good and faithful servant. I was just a servant.
A servant of
opposed to
chaos.
Doing all that I can when my family were alive and I was going through everything up to this point. I've become so much more closer to the Lord, and it's made me such a better person, and I hope that I am an example going forward of the Lord's light and can draw many people to me because of it.
Any follow-up, State?
No, I assumed that was the final word.
Thank you. She can return back to council's table.
Oh my
Anything else from your side,
God,
Mr.
y'all.
No more witnesses, Judge, just arguments.
Okay. Anything else in rebuttal, or just proceed to argument, State?
Just proceed to argument.
Okay. All right. Once Ms. Booth's seated, you can proceed with your argument, either Mr. J or Mr. Cacciatore. You may proceed, sir.
Your Honor, I'm going to start my argument by what I anticipate Mr. Owens will bring up in his presentation regarding the plea offer in this case. That she was offered the resolution in this case of 15 years in the Department of Corrections to begin with. I think it's important, though, that the entire circumstance of that plea offer is put forward. And
Yes.
there's something very critical to that.
Spill that tea,
It's
Mr.
not
Cacciatore.
just 15 years in the Department of Corrections. It's 15 years in the Department of Corrections, but it's predicated on something. And the consideration that it's predicated on is the defendant coming to court and accepting responsibility for her actions. For her coming to court and saying, I am responsible for George Torres's death, and I accept the punishment that comes with it. That consideration was never given in this case. And because that consideration was never given in this case, the offer of 15 years in no way represents what this case is worth, or what George Torres's life is worth. That is an offer predicated on a particular circumstance, a circumstance of a first-time defendant accepting responsibility and giving every benefit of the doubt in coming to court and saying that they are ready to be punished. Those conditions were never met. So then we turn to this case, and we turn to this crime, and we turn to the actions of the defendant of taking the law into her own hands and murdering George Torres. She has never shown remorse for that. She didn't show remorse for that here today. She again painted herself as the victim. She's the victim of George Torres. She recounted the litany of evil deeds and mistreatments that he perpetrated upon her. She's the victim of George Torres' family. She's the victim of the police. She's the victim of social media. It's all about Sarah Boone. Everything's about Sarah Boone, about how she is the victim. And Sarah Boone sentenced every one of George Torres' loved ones to a life sentence. Just like she sentenced George Torres when he was in that suitcase. George Torres lived out his last nightmarish circumstance in that suitcase, begging to be let out for several minutes, which undercuts any argument that this was somehow unsophisticated. There was ample time and opportunity over and over.
That's right. We know you,
for
Sarah.
her to do something different. But she went forward with taking the law into her own hands and ensuring that George Torres was never getting out of there. While she went up to bed and went to sleep for hours on end. She can't say that she was in duress for the same reason. She was in such duress of George Torres that she goes upstairs and goes to sleep.
Rachel, I got it. Oh my God. Y'all.
Your Honor, there's been nothing from the testimony of Dr. Harper either that establishes any type of diagnosis that would give this court a basis to downward depart. Dr. Harper has put blinders on to the fact that she has been incarcerated for 58 months. 58 months with the opportunity to receive mental health treatment, and the expert witness is absolutely incurious about what any of those records or diagnosis or anything that would have been there would have said. There is no valid basis for a downward departure in this case. She deserves a life sentence. Thank you.
Mr. Owens, response?
Yes, let's hear your gibberish. I can't hardly wait.
Just Craney. First off, I want to thank you for taking the time to hear our side, hear the witnesses, and review the letters on Sarah Boone's behalf. You know, we've all been here for this trial. We've all been here for other trials. We've all got some age on us. We've all got some life experience
Oh,
on
now
us.
you're calling people old. Fantastic start.
This is a unique case. This was a unique homicide. It was a unique death. And as we all know, a lot of these cases are not black and white. They're shades of gray. And these crimes don't occur in a vacuum. That there's generally a history, especially involving a domestic couple, a history that comes into play that must be explored. And a lot of what Sarah Boone testified to here today probably happened behind closed doors. And we all know that many times we do not know what happens behind closed doors between a man and a woman in their home, unless there is some reason for the neighbors or law enforcement or somebody else to get involved. And that happened in this case. And so gradually over time, as this event occurred, there was an investigation, and it was learned that there was a history of domestic violence involving these two parties. And what we learned was that physically there was violence, and there were photographs to establish that, as were introduced in the trial. And then there was testimony from experts, not only the defense expert, Dr. Harper, that Sarah Boone was the victim, and she was a victim of intimate partner violence, but coupled with the fact that the state's expert testified on the stand at the trial that Sarah Boone was a victim of intimate partner violence, that she suffered from this domestic or this battered spouse syndrome at the hands of Jose Torres. So there's two sides to it. And in a domestic violence situation like that, 95% of the women get out of that relationship. When violence starts to occur, they've either been raised a certain way, they have a certain self-esteem about themselves, where they refuse to put up with it.
I'd like to
it's
see,
wrong,
hold on a minute.
knowing that they can do better.
I would really like to see these numbers you're quoting. I'm gonna need you to cite your sources, sir. This sounds made up. I don't think those numbers are accurate, y'all.
But there is a small percentage throughout the country that, for whatever reason, mental health issues, addiction issues, whatever it is, it's complex. Financial reasons, children are involved, whatever. If you do any studying on it,
did you do any studying?
There are circumstances where there is a group of women, predominantly women, it can happen to men, but majority of the time it's a woman that gets caught in this cycle of what we term as intimate partner violence. And heard the testimony about the cycle that occurs. It's over a period of time and it repeats itself, and you go through these phases. And a lot of times the victim's not a great historian at trying to articulate it. She tried to do it here today. And I think on Sarah Boone's behalf, she is a unique individual. She's got the personality that she's got. I don't know. You heard from Dr. Harper that a lot of that was formulated based on the way her mother did not bond with her, the way that her father was the way that he was, the fact that she lost several relatives at a young age, and the trauma that can result. We heard from Dr. Harper that she did suffer from post-traumatic stress as it relates to that trauma in early childhood, and then again as it relates to the events that occurred between Mr. Torres and her. So it's complicated, Judge. It's complicated. But the jury has spoken. Sarah Boone was entitled under Florida law to present that defense, and she did. That testimony was allowed to be presented. She was allowed to testify. But the jury spoke. And so here we are today with you in a position to decide what is justice for Sarah Boone. And I don't know you that much other than our time together, but from what I know you try to do the right thing. And that's what we're asking the court to do. To have some discernment, to have some understanding of the unique situation that Sarah Boone found herself in. And quite frankly, Judge, this all didn't occur behind closed doors. A lot of this was in the public eye. Mr. Torres had, I believe, 3 criminal cases before the courts of this county in which Sarah Boone was a victim. Mr. Torres was the accused.
Wow.
Those cases were dismissed. We know from the history of this domestic violence field that that's normal, that Sarah Boone every time either tried to bond him out or tried to get the case dismissed. At some point, somebody has to stop. Somebody has to say, wait, what's going on here? This keeps repeating. It's going to get worse. Something's going to happen. The system failed, Sarah Boone. I'd ask for you to consider that.
What was in that water bottle, Owens?
And what led us here today. I've asked the court to consider a downward departure. I believe you've gotten a copy of the score sheet.
Not since before trial.
Okay.
Is the score sheet stipulated to?
Yes, yes, sir.
All right, you may approach. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Judge, I was provided that here today, and I believe, I can't remember the total number of months that it involves, but divided by 12, I think it's 20 months. 20.6 is the low end of the guidelines or something about.
It's 246.0 months based on the score sheet.
I did the calculation, but I believe that the low end is 20 years, 20.6 years state prison.
I'm getting them out. I'm getting the calculator.
20.5. Yes, sir.
And as the court knows, I believe it's on page 3. There are some aggravators that the court can consider in opposing the sentence, and then there are a list of mitigators that the court can consider in downward departing, meaning going lesser than the low end of the guidelines.
The judge
And
knows
in
what
the
that
defendant's
is.
Motion for downward
Oh, my
departure,
God.
we mentioned, and I had Dr. Harper testify about 2 or 3 of the grounds, and the court needs to only find one to go below the guidelines. The capacity of the defendant to appreciate the criminal nature of her actions and to conform said actions to the requirements of the law were substantially impaired. Judge, I don't have to reiterate the facts and circumstances surrounding this event. You were here, you heard the testimony, you heard the circumstances surrounding what happened and how it happened. I would ask that you consider that as a mitigator.
I would ask that you consider what the defendant herself said and leave it there.
Indeed, the defendant requires specialized treatment for a mental disorder that is not related to substance abuse or addiction and is amenable to treatment. I think it's fair to say here that we know that Sarah suffers from some mental health issues, objective mental health issues that have been opined by Dr. Harper and Dr. Werner. And you heard Dr. Harper testify about the post-traumatic stress disorder that she suffers from as it relates to this event, as it relates to her trauma that occurred in childhood.
Are you trying to
I think we
explain?
heard from Dr.
Hold a
Werner.
minute.
Dr. Werner testified that
Are you sitting up there really rambling on in this way? Is some lame attempt at trying to excuse the words that came out of her mouth when she was given an opportunity to speak? Oh my God.
she suffered from the alcohol abuse disorder, as did Dr. Harper, but Dr. Werner also mentioned that she was not for sure about the anxiety disorder, whether it occurred prior to or because she was in the jail for the 4.5 years. However, she does require specialized treatment for the mental disorder, and she is amenable for treatment. And then third, the defendant acted under extreme duress, I think based on Sarah Boone's mindset as she testified to her today, and then you heard from the experts at the trial, that when you get that anxious about what happens, Sarah testified about they would have good days where there would be no drinking or very little drinking, and then there would be other days where there was heavy drinking, and generally when George Torres got highly intoxicated is when potentially things could get violent, and that she was constantly anxious about each day that she was with him. She loved him. Obviously, being in a cycle like that where you love someone but can't leave them. For whatever reason, George Torres couldn't leave Sarah Boone, and Sarah Boone couldn't leave George Torres, and it was a vicious cycle. But we believe that she qualifies under that it was under extreme duress at the time of this event. And lastly, the defense was committed in an unsophisticated manner, which was an isolated incident. Now, isolated, we know, Judge, that she had one prior event in which both of them were arrested.
Revival, 15
Her
years.
testimony that it was during an event, they ended up downstairs next to the washer and dryer, and that she was on the bottom, and she had used her hands to try to get him off, and she had tried to choke him, and there were some marks on him. And she was arrested for I think felony domestic violence battery, as well as he was arrested. I think a few days later, both of those charges were dismissed against either party. But she has no criminal conviction record. She has never been convicted of a crime other than that event. Now, I think that can be distinguished. So we believe that it was an unsophisticated manner. Obviously, the uniqueness of this event is unsophisticated. Anybody that would calculate that they were going to murder somebody by putting them in a suitcase and let them spend the night, and the next morning not try to dispose of the body, not try to put the suitcase in a car and go dump the body, not try to dispose of the bat.
Mainly Vincent, because they wanted to be done with this.
She did nothing. No attempts to tamper with evidence.
All right, hold on a second. This is important. I want to point this out. Vincent's missing ear asked a question, and I think this is important before I need a break. I'm sorry from this inane babble over here coming from Owen. So Vincent's missing ear says, so why did the state offer the plea deal again? I think they offered it because they wanted Sarah to take accountability. And I think that's the actual true reason that she didn't accept the plea deal, because she didn't want to get up there and she didn't want to take accountability and responsibility at all. That's the truth. That's why she turned it down. Also because she sucks.
No attempts after the fact to uncover any conduct whatsoever. No attempts to delete the videos from her phone. Here's my phone. Voluntarily given that information. I think that goes to the unsophisticated manner and unintentional.
No, that goes to
death.
Sarah is delusional and thinks that those videos show something other than what they actually show.
I remember the first time.
Oh my God.
The first time I saw the Suitcase video. And I know people have differing opinions. Tony Henderson, my colleague, had a different opinion when he saw it. But I remember the first time I saw
I
the
need a
video.
cigarette. I'm already
And
done.
I heard what she was saying to him. When he was saying, hey, Sarah, let me out. I can't breathe. Or words to that effect. And the way that she was talking to him and the statements that she gave to him, in my mind, what has he done to her? What has he done to her? Any loved one you see in a situation like that is going to run and let them out. So my thought was, obviously, they were both drinking. But what has he done to her? And I think it's telling about what she'd endured. So it's not a clear-cut case, Judge. It's not black and white. There is some gray. And it's up to you to decide what's appropriate based on the court's, based on the jury's decision. But I would ask you to temper whatever justice that you think is appropriate with some mercy. and considered the fact that the state was willing to offer 15 years on a manslaughter as a lesser included offense, based on the facts and circumstances that they were aware of prior to this trial. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal by the state? Court has had the opportunity to review the evidence and testimony that was presented at trial. The victim impact statements presented here today, the statements of character witnesses, both orally and in writing, Dr. Harper's report and testimony, the defendant's testimony, pre-sentencing investigation, the arguments of the state and the arguments of the defense. Court pronounces sentence as follows. Ms. Boone, court sentences you to life in the Department of Corrections with credit time served that Madam Clerk will provide to you momentarily. There are also court costs and costs of prosecution, which Madam Clerk will give you the totals of momentarily. Due to the court levying a life sentence, the court is inclined to liquidate those to a civil judgment unless I hear opposition from the state.
No opposition, Your Honor.
All right. Madam Clerk, if you could please give us the credit time served and the court costs, please.
4 years, 9 months, and 8 days, and the court costs are $418, a state prosecution fee of $100, a dirt fee of $50, and a PD. Oh, excuse me, you're not supervised.
I'm right.
So the total would be, would come up to $618.
All right, ma'am, the court costs and costs of prosecution are $618. Those will be liquidated to a civil judgment. You will be given credit time served of 4 years, 9 months, and 8 days. You will have 30 days from today to appeal the judgment and sentence in writing. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to you. I'm going to have the courtroom deputy provide you the paperwork. Because you've been incarcerated for the last 58 some odd months, the court is going to declare that you are indigent in this matter. I cannot appoint the public defender to represent you as they are conflicted out. Similarly, I cannot appoint the regional conflict counsel to represent you for the same reasons. The clerk will appoint an attorney from the conflict wheel who specializes in appellate litigation. And again, you'll have 30 days from today to appeal that judgment and sentence in writing. Do you have any questions for me? You will now be remanded into the custody of the Orange County Jail to transfer you to the Department of Corrections, and I wish you the best of luck. State, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Defense, anything further? All right. Thank you all very much. Court's off the record.
Wow. Hold on. I just want to see what happens. She is still bossing this man around. Look at her.
She's on her way.
Okay. Can you just give me a heads up when they get her here?
Yeah, I got you.
I gotta go down and see her real quick.
All right.
Start.
I'm still flabbergasted at her speech. That's where I'm at. Like, I'm not shocked at all that she got life. At all. Not even a little. Exactly, MK. I think the judge was disgusted with her, especially after that speech. That was the most ridiculous speech I've ever seen. And that was the most ridiculous speech I have ever seen. And let me remind you that this allocution is after Lori Vallow Daybell sat her butt behind the defense table and then listened to all the things, stood up, had an opportunity to make her statement, and she chose to say the things that she chose to say. Okay? And this was worse than that. Worse. Oh, Neat Noodle, I will bet you $11 billion Sarah has no regrets. She seriously thinks that what she said on the stand was the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I'll rewind it for you. We can go right to the speech.
From, and then you want to speak to the court after that?
Yes.
Why don't you go ahead and get started?
This is actually an edited version of.
Easy there, Owens. You ain't paying for that.
I had a lot to say. I've had a lot of time to think about things, and
Of
I
course,
didn't really
Artemis.
know how to put it on paper, and I didn't know how much I could say or how little I should say. So what I have here is, like I said, an edited version. But I would like to read the more important parts that I feel that everyone should know that wasn't said in my actual trial. And on top of what I have on paper, this is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. So I wanted to read this, and then, if I may, I would like to address everyone in my apology on top of my statement.
You may proceed, ma'am.
Kintu Sukuroi is a kind of Japanese ceramic style which means to repair with gold. In this tradition, when a ceramic piece breaks, an artisan will fuse the pieces back together again using liquid gold or gold dust lacquer. So rather than being covered up, the breaks become more obvious and a brilliant new piece of art emerges from the brokenness. It embraces flaws, weakness, and imperfections, and also teaches the essence of resilience. Every crack in a ceramic piece is a part of its history, and each piece becomes more beautiful because it has been broken. This is the wisdom of Kintu Sukuroi. In my wisdom and with all of my repairs, then, now, and ongoing, God is, has been, and will always be my artisan. All of my gold is forgiveness. This has held me together, made me shine brighter, and overcome the damage caused by George Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation, ongoing constitutional rights violations.
Hold on a minute. She said scoundrel detectives. Scoundrel detectives. If you can, please, for me, I ask for so very little. Could you please put the bells of malevolence in the chat for Sarah Boone?
Second-degree murder, forced into being pro se. Just as gold is very precious, forgiveness is invaluable. Forgiveness is not an attempt to change or forget who, what, or how you've lived through to be so gold, but an act of grace, humility, and considerable self-compassion to be set free from sorrow. Withholding forgiveness denies your brilliance and adds even greater grief and deeper heartache, irreparable cracks on top of the already that no one deserves, no matter the pain or disappointment, untruths or injustice. It doesn't matter, as the more broken you are, even though now different than before, you've become more outstanding and more extraordinary. Above all, when you let go of blame, misunderstandings, excuses, give up your anger and cease from resentment, this is forgiven. And when you forgive, you heal. And when you heal, you move forward. My goal begins with George Torres, and every time he slapped me, kicked, punched, spit on, raped, stabbed, choked, laughed at, pushed, pulled, dragged, whipped, tripped, stole from, lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded, made me cry. Every time he tried to end me, defeat, or destroy. I forgive George for beating me senseless, for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day, for ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture, destroying the television, doors, ramming his entire body into glass doors.
I just like you guys in the chat. Let's all take a moment here to recognize that 2 seconds ago she's talking about forgiveness. Okay? This is the face of forgiveness, apparently, and the speech of forgiveness, apparently.
Kicking in my front and back door over and over and over. For breaking or removing the locks from all of the doors and sometimes the knobs altogether, so I had nowhere to feel safe, including the sacred space of my son's room where he beat me bloody on his bed. My blind and deaf dogs by leaving the gate open I built to keep them safe, telling me he hoped I'd find their bloated dead body in the pond or scrape their remains off of the pavement. For kicking
Oh no,
them off
Billy,
the bed
we're
and
hold on a
across
second.
the
Hold on.
room because they were trying to protect.
Billy, we know what she got. We're not behind. We just wanted to hear this ridiculous speech one more time, just because she thought this was a good idea. Like seriously thought that this is a speech about forgiveness.
Me.
We
For
rewound.
threatening to make me unrecognizable to my son by breaking all of the bones in my face, like his brother Moses did to him after he kept seeing all of the bruises from George beating me, like all of the times their father beat their mother. For all of the drunken rages and fist fights with so many neighbors when wandering into their apartments during hunting expeditions after I had escaped. For drowning me in liquor and wine because I didn't want to drink, causing me to urinate on myself, then butting the end of the bottle in my face, giving me 2 black eyes and a bloody nose. For making me experience what it is to be sodomized.
I'm going to stop you right there, ma'am. We all saw the video where you woke George up because you were angry at him because he drank all the vodka. So when were you forced to drink? Just asking.
Threatening to kill my friends and the neighbors when they checked on me to make sure I was alive and in one piece. For threatening to burn down our townhome and set my car on fire because I got a job. For holding me hostage on weekends my son was supposed to come over by keeping my keys around his neck, my phone in his crotch, and a butcher knife stuck in the middle of the table as a warning not to ask anything or try to leave. For stabbing me in the leg and not letting me call 911 for an ambulance or seek help, where I nearly bled to death until I concocted a lie to save him from being arrested.
Okay, hold on.
For destroying my phone.
This is a concocted lie. You did not almost bleed to death. Stop that right now.
With a hammer because my son called. For me experiencing ever being arrested and after today, prison. For beating me almost blind, crushing my occipital lobe. For having me experience what it means to see stars, like in the cartoons, where a character has a tall lump on their head. I had that too, and many times. For dragging me downstairs by my hair in the middle of the night just to sit next to him. For taking my car driving drunk with my debit card to buy more alcohol while I slept, even after I kindly explained the importance of my car to take my son to school foremost, me to work, and he to his batterers intervention classes and probation officer meetings, where I would be forced to sit for hours in the parking lot waiting for him. For causing me so much trauma and pain, mentally, physically, emotionally, I had to be hospitalized more than once. For destroying my reputation and integrity, for my M for murderer scarlet letter, not letting me feel safe to live, talk to other people, spend time with my son, have a job, friendships, simply go to the bathroom with the door closed, or go to sleep soundly or comfortably. I forgive George for lying, for him trying in so many ways, so many times, to end me with his terrifying love. I also forgive the Torres family, his mother and father foremost, also his 2 ex-wives and daughters, all for knowing who George was, capable of, and has done in the past, his history of violence and where he learned it.
It's worse the second
time.
time.
When I would ask for help. All of his siblings, including Farrell Torres, who is now on his way to prison for stabbing the mother of their baby in the side of her head. For everyone who knew what George was doing to me, sometimes how and when, but allowed and enabled. I forgive them for caring too late. I hope they all ask themselves while quiet and comfortable in bed at night the uneasy question, what could I have done to stop this from happening to both of them? And after all the time Sarah tried to, by asking for help, from all of us, and so many times. Another great contributor of my gold is social media, with its greed, insensitivity, deception, obvious exploitation, and advantageous gain from my criminal case as a whole.
I'm going to stop you right there. Look at here, okay? All I ever did was read your letters. Those were your words. I just read them. And listening to you read your own letter right now, I pretty much nailed it. That is all.
And for sentencing me by anticipation as a result of ignorance and hate, conjured and fabricated by the organized crime that is social media, which condemned me in the court of global public opinion since the beginning. My family law case is the new prey waiting to be picked apart and pillaged from me being made infamous by social media in my criminal case. It simply seems I cannot forgive and be forgiven and move forward. Social media has made me a pariah. It has caused great oppression and undeniable disadvantages, especially by broadcasting and manipulating my cases online. In my criminal case, as a result, my opportunities to be given a fair, proper, and uninfluenced, successful conclusion was heavily depleted and poisoned. I forgive them. Also, all of the media tycoons for not having a life of their own, trying so desperately to make themselves seem so right by making me appear so wrong. Forgiveness for prejudgment, ridiculous theatrics, lies, making and taking blood money from my and others' misfortunes, accidents, and catastrophes. It's all over their hands and their keyboards. And even after all that's been said and done, theorized, hypothesized.
Look, I'm not saying that there aren't people that, in the media and that cover true crime that don't have ethics. But I'm telling you right now, you are not going to sit here and give me that speech. Okay? Because I think everybody knows in this chat that I do care about the victims. And guess what, Boone? You ain't the victim. Don't be mad because people see right through this BS and into that black soul of yours. So no, I'm not sorry. I don't need your forgiveness. And guess what else? I ain't got no regrets. How about that?
Scrutinized and blasphemed in my case. Still no one knows me. In the end, I forgive myself for not choosing my life sooner, for not being more brave, vigilant, bolder, and outspoken.
All right, we'll watch that in a
stronger,
second, Ivy
mentally,
Lee. Thank you,
physically,
babe.
Emotionally and spiritually. For being hopeless, desperate, simple-minded, weak, and inexperienced. I forgive myself for not realizing I was enduring a life of domestic violence and that the vicious cycle of never ends. I had nothing to compare to. I've never been hit by a man ever before in my life. I was raised hitting a woman was wrong and should never happen. No excuse. I forgive myself for not escaping permanently, for not fighting back sooner to save myself, my son, my dogs, home, and car. Having 20/20 hindsight, thinking of everything I could have done differently or better to avoid the outcome. I think about this every day since. Also, of all the good days we had together, for him at least, while I was constantly in hyperdrive, high alert, and paranoid, making sure I did everything right all the time. If not, the great possibility I would be ended as George threatened me with so many times before. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster, and no matter how grotesque he may become, I still loved him, hoped, and forgave. I tried breaking the spell so he wouldn't be a monster anymore. I saw who he was inside. George made me then, now, and always love him for all of his cracks also. We made each other our own brilliant pieces of art from the cracks and repairs. Unfortunately, not all cracks can be. In all of my forgiveness, George is my greatest lesson and will forever be a part of me. I think of him every day and still speak to him when alone on the rec yard. I ask his forgiveness and that he looks for me at the gates of heaven so I can tell him how sorry I am, endlessly, and that I never stopped loving him. In all of it and still. When I first came to jail, I put my mat under my bed and cried all day and all night for months, only falling asleep from being so exhausted with grief. I wrote him letters. I wrote his family and his daughters, apologizing for asking for their forgiveness. But due to fear that my life or sons would be jeopardized, I did not send. I am sorry. I cannot begin to fathom any of their grief and sadness. Please forgive me. Almost everything reminds me of him, seeing my stab wound especially every day especially. It truly reminds me that all I really did live through. George haunts me. He is everywhere. I believe because I do still love him, think of him, and miss his laugh the most. In my heart, I know he is with me and understands that this tragedy was not intentional. I hope everyone can, his family foremost. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please wholeheartedly know that, and always, I would never. Forgive me, George. Forgive me, Torres family. Forgive me, Judge Cranick. To the entire planet, please forgive me. I graciously and humbly ask for consideration, for forgiveness to be extended instead of judgment, for reconciliation and restoration for all of us to move forward. My apology is profuse and ceaseless. Allow me, please, to brush off the muck, wipe the blood off of my face, and fix the cuts in my skin. I ask for understanding in what really happened and for how long, for second chances, repentance, and redemption, to advocate for all domestic violence survivors, to help them overcome, heal, and still hope.
Hey, so what channel is Owens talking on? If anybody knows, let me know and I'll pull it up for us next. Because I can't find it, so.
Always, to make their voices
Please.
heard, to confidently walk with all of their scars on the outside and the inside, to help them not ever become a casualty of domestic violence as so many others, to stop the abuse and maltreatment before it's too late. There is always hope, and you can survive. In my soft-spoken conclusion, I ask this: would I be the darling mother, celebrated woman of the year, if it were I who died? How many daughters, mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, nieces, and friends have been because they did? I am a survivor. Learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke oppressors, defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. Isaiah 1:17, all-encompassing, protect the abused.
Ms. Boone, is that the end of your written statement?
Yes.
Now, gathering your thoughts, did you want to make an oral statement?
I do.
All right, would you do that now?
Yes, please. My statement, my verbal statement, is primarily to the Torres family, to the judge, to his daughters. I know you all know who I really am, and that I did care for George, and that I do still love George. I know you know that we had very many good days, and I take offense to the statement of being said that this is just for a moment. Right now with me here in the courtroom in front of you all, this is just for a moment. But the moments before that, in order for me to be here, is endless. It's everlasting. The scars that I have on the inside, my outside scars have healed, except...
Did you even listen to what his sister said? What his sister said was for the people in the courtroom, meaning the judge, the defense attorney, us watching, the state. For them, it is a moment. That's what she said. It had nothing to do with you, Boone. Also, look at that pause game, y'all.
for my stab wound. But this has changed me as a person to see things differently and to understand things differently and to...
All right, B Crumbs. Thank you.
Weak and just try to protect yourself and forever, regardless of the time that I may receive from today. I forever will have this experience. I forever will have George Torres with me in my heart, in my mind, my body, and my soul. As he and I used to say that we were one soul split into two bodies. This is not just for a moment. It may be for everyone in this courtroom, but when I leave, this is forever. When you all leave, that this is forever. This is forever for everyone here and those who it matters to most. I am one of those who will experience this forever. I'm sorry. Words do not define my shame, and I don't know what else it is that I can say and convey to the Torres family how this happened.
I don't know, maybe don't blame them and maybe not say that you take offense to it being a moment. You could start there. How about that? Try that. Nope, too late. What an
The
idiot.
F's and Y's and how really don't matter. It happened, and I'm sorry.
Forever, ever?
Words cannot describe. And I hope that everyone can forgive me, the Torres family most of all, and his daughters, because I know what he meant to them. And I don't think that anybody ever understood what he meant to me and I to him. And I ask for forgiveness.
Uh-huh.
Ms. Boone, I have just one or two questions.
There's nothing else good about this. All she's going to do next is talk about how she found the Lord, but this needs to be, we need to talk about this. So just give me, hold on a second. Where's it at? Here it is.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
All right, so let's get over here to Trial TV Live. I'll drop the link. Give me just 1 second. All right, here we go.
Good, how are you?
Very dissatisfied, very unhappy about that result based on the testimony that came out from the two experts as well as Sarah's testimony about the abuse that she suffered. Obviously, I don't believe she was lying about that. I think we had a history of it with photographs, with arrests that were made. We had two experts, not only the defense expert, but also the state's expert saying that she suffered from intimate partner violence. I think that is at least a minimum, a mitigator in something like this. I understand the jury's decision. We respect the jury's decision. But the testimony, the photographs, the evidence was clear that she was abused. And no, I'm not happy with a life sentence.
Sarah Boone didn't have much of a reaction as far as what we could see inside the courtroom after learning she had a life sentence. How did you talk to her after? How is she feeling?
Well, she did say something to me to the effect that, can you believe it? I got life.
Yes, we can all believe it.
No. So, you know, I think she was poker faced. I think maybe that's what you're referring to, but I think she was not expecting life.
Mr.
Neither was I.
Mr. Owens, Jules with Top Mark Media. Can you tell me, did you prepare her for what might happen today? Was she prepared for this?
Yes, she was. You know, we talked about the minimums, we talked about the maximums. She was aware. Court had told her what the minimums and maximum were before trial. So she.
Yeah, but understand. Let's talk about who you're dealing with. You're dealing with a person who thought that speech that she gave at her sentencing hearing was a good idea. Shut up.
What they were. She understood the judge had the power to downward depart and give lesser than the low end of the guidelines. He did not do that.
Obviously.
So, you know, that was his decision. He's the judge. He's the trial judge. He ultimately had to make the call. The jury made their call. It was the judge's time to pass sentence, and that's what he gave. You know, I respect Judge Kranick. I like him a lot.
Oh, do you?
I disagree with that sentence.
Can you talk about the next steps for Sarah?
Well, she's got 30 days to file an appeal. Usually these appeals are handled by the public defender's office, who has maybe 3 or 4 lawyers within the office, and that's all they do is appeals. But in this case, Judge Kranick has said, I've already found that there's a conflict with the public defender's office. I've already found that there's a conflict with the alternative public defender's office called Regional Conflict Counsel. So there must be a list of appellate lawyers that do appellate criminal work in the private bar. And the clerk will pick whoever is next on the list will be her lawyer.
And again, you won't be representing her any longer.
No, I mean, never say never. You know, if the case gets reversed on appeal and she's entitled to another trial, I'm not going to say I'll never represent her a second time, but I'm definitely not doing the appeal, and we'll see. I do believe there are 3 or 4 good appellate issues. We'll see what the appellate courts say. That usually takes, I think, about 1.5 to 2 years for them to come back. So she'll be with the Department of Corrections, wherever they send her, for the next couple of years.
And I apologize for this, but my camera glitched as we were starting. Your reaction to the verdict?
Well, disappointed with that. I thought because she did suffer from battered spouse syndrome, and that was elicited from the state's expert as well as the defense expert, as well as the testimony from Sarah Boone, as well as the photographs and the evidence, the arrest of Mr. Torres prior, that she was the victim of battered spouse. I thought the court should consider that. It was within.
They did consider it. They didn't believe it, and it was rejected. The end.
In his discretion to give her life. I just strongly disagree with that result.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Owens.
If you believe that Sarah was more apologetic in her statements today, the judge may have given her a lighter sentence.
No.
Sarah seemed very upbeat when she walked in. Was that truly how she felt, or was that like a stiff upper lip?
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Look, Mr. Cacciatore got up there and he said that they offered her 15 years, but it was contingent on her taking accountability. She couldn't do it. She won't do it. And maybe I do think that had Sarah offered some humility, showed contrition, showed remorse, actually apologized instead of saying, I'm the victim, but guess what? And I'm the victim. I took your loved one's life, but hey, here's something for you. I forgive you. Get bent. You're just as delusional as Sarah is, Mr. Owens.
You know, Sarah, you can imagine somebody being in jail for 4.5 years. Their self-esteem, they're at the bottom.
Yes, that I do find that, yeah, Sarah is really the picture of zero self-esteem. Are we watching the same thing you're watching?
Okay. And she's a fighter, as we all know.
Uh-huh.
When she's backed into a corner,
she puts people in
her
suitcases.
personality.
We know.
It comes out. She doesn't give up. She doesn't just say whatever. And it was her chance to say what she really believed.
She doesn't say I'm wrong. She doesn't say I'm sorry. All fantastic traits.
Based on her experience, and like I said, nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors. You know, we saw videotapes.
Videotapes, like
her
it's
berating,
1992.
Mr. Torres, and it appeared, the state argued in the case in chief that it was a mutual abusive relationship.
Owens, did you not watch those videos? And they're not videotapes. They were taken from her phone, recorded by her. Those were her proofs, bruh. This was her documenting what she thinks is abuse perpetrated on her. Unfortunately, for Sarah Boone, the rest of the world doesn't labor under the same level of delusion that Sarah does, and saw those videos for exactly what they were. Just shush.
We can only go with what we know and what's presented as evidence. Nobody knows the details and the extent of what went on. We heard Sarah try to explain it. I believe she was trying to explain it. Did she harm herself maybe by some of the things she said as it relates to Mr. Torres?
Yes.
Or his family? Maybe.
Yes.
I was just going to ask you about
Maybe. Come on, Owens.
that. Did you have an opportunity to go over Sarah's statement that she was going to make in court today, or she did this completely on her own?
Well, she had written that statement several days ago, but I was not able to get back down here. The holidays and some other things that went on until last night. So I had a chance to talk to her about that statement earlier, right before court. I'm torn between being a lawyer and being a human being. I mean, she's facing life in prison. It's your chance to speak. I don't like to take away everything, but I did have her delete a bunch.
Oh, God. Y'all. Let's just take in what he just said right now. I did have her delete a bunch. If that's the stuff that stayed, I need to know what was deleted. And that now it makes sense. He said, I had her delete a bunch. And when she got up on the stand, she was very upset about, this is the edited version.
Say it was edited.
It was.
Okay.
At my suggestion, but to some degree, she truly believes that she's a victim. And, to this country, I'm sure there have been other victims of domestic violence that have been battered women that have gone to prison. There have been a few cases where they've been acquitted based on the testimony.
Sarah's not going to get acquitted.
It's a case-by-case basis. It is a difficult syndrome to explain. It's a difficult syndrome to understand because most women leave. The first time some guy pushes, strikes, hits, whatever the case may be, they won't stand for it. But there is a small percentage of women that put up with the abuse.
What's next for you now, Mr. Owens?
I'm going home.
Hey, bye.
Bye.
Yes, driving home.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Scott, is there any last questions you have? Do you have any questions for him? Okay.
Well, that's Sarah Boone. I think this was a horrible accident that happened. I don't think she intended to kill him, but the state didn't have to prove that she intended to kill him. I do think she loved him, but it was a highly toxic, dysfunctional love affair.
This right here, I highlighted the wrong one. This is the one I want, which he is insufferable. Lisa is correct. This is what I wanted to show. Nadie, bingo. No, statistics say it takes like 7 times before they leave. Sir, do your research. Correct. You need Owens. Yikes on bikes. Let me see what other kernels of crazy come out of his mouth.
The way he was and the way she was and how it ultimately ended up. Obviously, if you could go back in time.
The way she was, y'all. No, she's still that way. She ain't changed.
Change things. I think, They probably tried to break up 2 or 3 times. I think he moved in with his parents, then he would come back over. So it was one of those relationships. We've all seen him. We've had family or friends.
Yes, he would come back over because Sarah would go and get him. And if he tried to get away, if he tried to stay away from her, she would pepper his phone with, well, really his mother's phone. She would rapid fire texts to him. And then if he continued, then if he did show up and she got a wild hair up, then she would just call 911 and say, you know, he's here and there's an order of protection. Like, are you serious?
But, relationships where you know it's not working out, but they can't seem to let go.
The statement she made in court with his family in there, knowing that he was no longer alive, and the family there, I mean, her to say that she forgave them for not stopping the abuse. Is that something you advised her on in that statement?
Well, that's something that she came up with and she wanted to say. And again, she's facing life in prison. I believe she was a victim of domestic violence based on everything that I've looked at in this case. So I know that she was a victim. Now, whether she was justified in somehow this happening, of course not. But
I mean, didn't that strike you as, you know, you've been an attorney, did that not strike you as
Maybe don't say that.
not a good situation to be blaming the victim, the dead victim's family for
I don't know that she was blaming. I think she was saying she forgave him. She felt like...
Okay. Owens, did you even listen to your client? She did blame them. Okay. Without blame, how can there be forgiveness? Ding dong. Do you even know how this works? Let's just start there. But she did blame them. She said that they knew what was going on. They didn't help her. They enabled him. That's what she said. That is blaming. What are you talking about, bruh?
Like they should have intervened.
You should have walked away a long time ago and stopped answering questions, but here we are, and I am here for it.
I know that sometimes you'll have interventions where family members will intervene in a situation where you know it's so toxic or know it's potentially violent. You know the history of the person. I don't know. That's what she wanted to say. I believe she believed in her heart of hearts that she was a victim and maybe they should have done something sooner. Maybe it is, to some degree, just Sarah Boone not wanting to accept the responsibility that she knew all along that she should have gotten out of the relationship. She just didn't have the courage to get out of it. You know, so she's wanting to say to other people, maybe y'all should have stepped in and helped me some more because I was too weak or not strong enough not independent enough to let go.
Okay, let me tell you what they did, which is the only thing they could do. Okay. They let George move in with them. All right. Let's stick with your circular logic here that makes zero sense. Okay. So George came after one of the incidents. George came to live with them. Right. And then he didn't want to live with them anymore. He wanted to be back with Sarah. And as hard as it is, and as hard as it would be for any mother or any parent for that matter to say, that's fine, do what you're going to do, but don't call me anymore. I got to walk away from this. That's what they did. They gave him an ultimatum. What else could they have done? I mean, let's be honest. Your client is the one that stuffed that man into a suitcase and left him there for hours until he ultimately died from positional asphyxiation. Shut up, Owens.
What did she say after she was given the life sentence?
I think she was, she didn't say much other than, can you believe he gave me life? Or can you believe I got life? And I said, that's all she said. And then we started talking about the appeal. And we started talking that she wants to talk to me tomorrow. I think I'm going to Zoom in or something at the jail and speak to her tomorrow about everything. So, yeah, up there after that, you can't really talk to the client that much. And the only thing you can do is go down to the very bottom and talk to her. So I just told her I'd talk to her tomorrow, so we were talking about that, and then she had to fill out a form.
Oh, fantastic.
Indicates
Tell
she's
all the
filing for an
things.
appeal. She wants me to file an appeal, and I'll do that within 30 days, and then the court will appoint an appellate lawyer.
Does she have grounds for an appeal?
No.
I believe she's got, 4 or 5 issues. I'm not an appellate lawyer. I'm not a great, legal scholar, legal mind, but I
Understatement of the year.
know that I had a case years ago that I felt like there was some mistakes, and I know that I made sure we filed the appeal, and it was reversed on appeal. So I know it happens, and it was just my gut instinct that there were some things that were done. The appellate courts have a lot of power. They can find just one thing as being so egregious that it affects the entire trial and she didn't get a fair trial, or they can maybe find 4 or 5 things and they say the cumulative effect maybe.
Didn't the judge say, though, that there was no...
Yeah, explain that, Owens. I know the
Yeah,
answer
that's
to
his
this.
opinion. But all the cases that have been reversed on appeal and had to go on back and try it, the trial judges did the best they could and felt like there was no mistakes made.
So she's going to try and get another trial?
Well, yeah, if when you file an appeal,
Oh, God,
you
here
claim
we
there was
go.
errors made either by the judge or by the prosecutor, or whatever the case may be, and the appellate court agrees and says we're going to send this back to the trial court. We're going to set aside the verdict, and it'll have to be tried again or resolved some way.
Do y'all understand the level of egregiousness of an error in court that is required to get a trial overturned, a sentence and conviction overturned, where you're retried? The burden of proof is solely on the defendant in an appeal. Whereas in a trial, the burden of proof is solely on the state. They're the ones that have to do everything. Even if the appellate courts say, this might have been an error, that might have, the error isn't so egregious that it warrants a new trial. This is ridiculous. I mean, I get it, but whatever. Still annoying. You're wrong. I disagree.
With the state attorney, but of course that's her hope that she wins an appeal. Nobody wants to do life in prison.
Who will pay for all of this?
The taxpayers. No. Be real clear here. The state is not paying for it. The taxpayers of the state of Florida. Hi, it's me. I'm a taxpayer of the state of Florida. We will be the ones paying for it. Lord. Carolina says, do you think that Sarah Boone will receive a reversal of her guilty plea? No. Of the guilty verdict? No, I don't. Not a snowball's chance in hell. Not based on what he's saying. Not based on his claims. Not, no.
The taxpayer, ultimately.
Yeah, ultimately.
Taxpayers have to pay.
Yeah, I didn't charge anything to represent her, and all the costs and expenses that I'm not asking for reimbursement. So I agreed to take the case. Ms. Boone understood that, the court understood that I wasn't going to be asking for any attorney's fees or any costs.
Why did you take the case?
Well, that's a long story. I've explained that before, but it was, if you remember, she went through about 7 or 8 lawyers, and finally the judge had deemed that she had forfeited a right to a trial, or a right to representation. And so I think after that, of course...
No, that is not what the judge found. That's not what the judge's orders were. The judge's orders were that she had forfeited her right to the public defender's office due to her behavior. That doesn't mean that she's forced to represent herself. She can retain a private attorney like yourself, who either they work out some type of payment arrangement, or he or she decides to take it pro bono. Let me say this, Owens. You're finna get a letter.
YouTube fan, so I was watching it on YouTube, and I saw a couple of hearings after that where she was representing herself, And I can remember her saying something like, "Judge, this is not fair. I can't do this." So at that point, the court had ruled she'd forfeited her right to a lawyer. She couldn't represent herself. I didn't think somebody could get a fair trial for murder without a lawyer. So, I came up here and talked to her and agreed to take the case.
And now she'll get another.
She'll get another appellate lawyer. She'll have an appellate lawyer that will, of course, everything will be typed up. Everything that was said, that's why it's so important to record everything. Everything will be typed up. And there will be a transcript, and that appellate lawyer will have to go through everything from the very beginning of the case.
But are you done at this point?
I'm done, other than I've got to file a notice of appeal. So I've got to do that. So I'm out of the case.
Thank you so much.
All right, very good.
Peace out. That's that. That is that. Whew. All right, you guys. So there you have it. That's kind of all I have for y'all tonight or this afternoon. I'm going to be back tonight. For any of you guys following the Sebastian Rogers case, I do have some things that I would like to talk about. It's not really a case. For those of you who are following Sebastian Rogers, the 15-year-old missing teenager from Tennessee, there's been some things that have occurred, not that have any impact on the missing persons case itself or, circumstances, but there's just some things. And I really would like to talk to you guys about that if you're interested. So I have a live scheduled for 8 p.m. Eastern. And I might move it to 9, but probably not. I don't know. I'll probably just leave it like it is. But anyway, if you haven't done so already, please give your girl a thumbs up on the stream. It keeps me in the algorithm. YouTube likes all that stuff. Do all the YouTubey things. I appreciate you being here. Jesse says, my thanks is profuse and ceaseless. Your welcomes are profuse and ceaseless right back. Nay, DK lady, love you, bye-bye. You guys have a great rest of your afternoon, and I will hopefully see you guys tonight. All right, bye.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do. Well, fuck you.
No malicious intent or effort was towards it.
No malicious.
Minutes later.
We all do a little mad sometimes.